Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 219. 219. We had a special show on Monday, but it was just a highlight, a local distiller product. So check that out on our Facebook page, or I think I did it on YouTube as well. But check that out. But tonight we have a special guest. We have special bottles here that I have never seen before. They were sent to us. And I'm happy to kind of get into what we're going to be drinking tonight. Tonight, we're going to be smoking, thanks to our sponsor, Tinderbox at Easton, the Gran Habano Corojo number 5. And we'll be talking about that in part 1 as well a bit. And I want to thank also Altadis USA. We got some Monte Cristo White Series for Nate and I to smoke in part 2. And that's obviously one of their best-selling cigars, best-selling SKUs, as to be expected because of how middle of the road as far as the body and smoothness, and just it's super popular. So thank you all to this. Thank you, Josh Bentley, for continuing to push us as one of our sponsors. So thank you very much. Also, BS Cigar Company, the Gold and Silver are available. So check those out. They're available at the Tinderbox at Easton, or you can get a hold of us through the podcast, and we'll get you pointed in the right direction. Real quick, patreon.com/bourbonbs podcast or Venmo at Bourbon and BS. Those are ways you can support the show, and we appreciate the continued support from all you guys. And the last little plug is, if you like what you see, I mean, you know, the BS stuff, the podcast stuff. I'm talking about swag. What were you thinking about? If you like what you see there, ladies and gentlemen. But buyjack.com, that's byjack.com/bourbon and BS. And you can grab any, like the 3/4 sleeve that I have on. That's the charity shirt that we had. But I think that comes still in 4 colors. The pour one more, light up another. We'll figure this out together. Shirts, and there's some hoodies as well. Some good stuff on there. So appreciate everyone snagging some of the swag. And then post it on our community page as well on Facebook, Bourbon and BS community page. All right, we got a special guest here, Nate.
Mm-hmm.
Seth Benhaim from Broken Barrel Whiskey Company. How you doing, Seth?
Hey guys, how you doing?
Doing well.
Doing well.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being a part of it. You're joining us from Los Angeles, correct?
That's correct.
That is awesome. And we're going to find out, because it's all Kentucky, straight, everything, right? So
yep,
you're in LA. Broken Barrel is in LA, right?
Yeah, we headquarter here, and then we also partner with a fantastic distillery in Owensboro, Kentucky.
Okay. Owensboro, Kentucky. And we'll get into that. Tonight, the featured bottle is going to be, and you can tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll get into a little bit more about Broken Barrel Whiskey Company. First of all, these bottles are badass.
Thank you.
Dude, love it. But this is the Broken Barrel Heresy Kentucky Straight Rye Whiskey, 105 proof. Is that, do you have other ryes, or is this the rye?
That is quite literally the only rye whiskey I think we have released at this point in time. That is it. That's the only rye we've ever done. That one bottle you're holding.
That's awesome. So, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about the bottle that we've got and what we're sipping on, because I've already had a couple sips on it and I'm enjoying it.
Absolutely. Well, Broken Barrel is really pretty different from most whiskeys. And the way I would describe it is, you know, everything we do has kind of layers to it. And if you look at that bottle and you turn it around, you'll see a little table on there that not only tells you exactly what the mash bill for this whiskey is. Now, again, this is a 95.5 rye, 95% rye, 5% malted barley.
Yeah.
But first of all, the rye is grown and sourced in Kentucky. The rye is milled, distilled, fermented, the whole shebang in Kentucky.
Okay.
So this is not from MGP. It's not redistilled or sourced or anything like that from MGP. It is 100% Kentucky product. And so that's all fine and great, and that makes it unique on that front. But then if you look further down, you'll see what we call an oak bill.
Yeah, I saw that. I was very interested in that.
Yeah, complementing everything on the table that you guys have there will have this. It's a little table that it describes what we call the oak bill. And the oak bill is complementary to the mash bill, except it's the composition of different barrel staves from different types of barrels that have been physically, literally broken by myself and my team. And we literally have, sledgehammers that we take and we patch up. We'll smash up barrels all day long, and we'll take those barrel staves and put those into the whiskey, physically floating around in a vat of whiskey that has been dumped from aged bourbon barrels or rye barrels. So that rye whiskey you're drinking tonight, our Heresy, which got its name from interaction I had early on in the concept of this product when we were kind of making our way out of the vodka business, not out of, we were adding to our vodka portfolio by adding these whiskeys. And we took the concept to a couple different producers and sourcers of barrels, and we told them what we wanted to do. And one person actually looked at us and said, "Hey, you can't do that. That's heresy. That's not going to work. That's like not how you make whiskey. You put the whiskey in the wood, not the wood in the whiskey." I said, no, that's not how I want to do it. I want to do it the other way. And so we did. And that's kind of how Broken Barrel was born. And that Heresy Rye you're drinking is basically the rye iteration or version of what we do.
And you do,
it's a very cool story. I like it.
You do that step after you've already aged it in oak barrels?
Yeah, so straight Kentucky rye means two things, as you obviously know. Straight 2 years minimum in new charred oak, white oak, and then Kentucky, meaning it spent its 2 years in Kentucky minimum to be called Kentucky Straight Rye Whiskey. If it was 1 year in Kentucky and 1 year in Indiana or Los Angeles or wherever, it could not be Kentucky Straight Rye Whiskey. So it's the time, in the place, and also all those other precursors to be called that.
When did this product come out?
So the one you're drinking probably, when did the brand Heresy Rye come out, or the bottle you've got there, that batch?
No, just this product in general, the Heresy Kentucky Straight Rye.
We launched the rye in 2018.
Okay.
Under the Infused Spirits banner, which is the prior name of the company before we broke it off and 100% made it Broken Barrel its own thing.
Yeah.
But the package you're holding, the beautiful bottle, the label,
the
recipe with the older whiskey in it, making everything, straight whiskey versus not a straight whiskey, which we did have for a time. There was a version of this rye whiskey that was not straight rye, just Kentucky rye, which had as little as 1 year old in the product. Very young whiskey.
Yeah.
That bottle that you're holding, the first one came out in August of 2021. So we've only been making the product you're tasting tonight for about a year with our partner.
Not even a year, right?
Yeah, not even a year.
Yeah, this says batch number 11, and then year bottled 2022. So this is
it's a newer one. So you got the that's probably that came off the line March. That was bottled in March of 2022.
Nice.
So
you started Infused Spirits, right? That's the company originally.
Yes, Infused Spirits is the total parent company. We make vodka, we make bitters, and we make the Broken Barrel bourbon line. And
then you're still based out of LA. Are any of those? I mean, you partner with everyone, or do you have?
We make the bitters, actually.
Okay. I'm just trying to get a grasp on it.
We make the bitters, and we make the vodka in Nevada, in northern Nevada. Nevada, but North Las Vegas, not the city of Las Vegas. It's actually the city of North Las Vegas. And then there are products we make. I don't know if anyone watching can see this, but we'll show you the label there. It actually says batched and bottled in Los Angeles. So anytime you see these black bottles, these all matte black bottles, those are ones that we're doing out of California. So there are a handful of Broken Barrel products that do come from California. They are sourced whiskeys, but they're processed and blended and even aged in California. So
but all of the whiskeys are coming out of Owensboro, correct?
All the whiskeys you're trying tonight are coming out
Okay.
of Owensboro. I've
Got
got
it,
some
yeah.
whiskey from Indiana and some whiskeys from elsewhere, but
Okay.
those are the more specialized limited edition releases we've done.
Okay. And Infused Spirits, you said you've been in business for about 10 years, right?
This year will be our 10th year.
Well, congratulations on a decade. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So I just want to interview you a little bit here. I mean, like, what got you into it? I mean, obviously, you showed us your office there. You've got obviously a slight interest in spirits, it seems.
Yeah.
You collect them. Obviously, you've been doing this for 10 years. I mean, what was the jumping off point? You're like, hey, I want to do this. Hey, I want to start this, and putting the staves in there and being, called out for heresy and all that stuff. I mean, what was the big jump off point for you to get into this industry?
The starting point for all of it was a handful of things that kind of all culminated in me wanting to be back in business for myself. I had a small business in college that I enjoyed doing, working for myself and making my own hours, and making money was fun. So I enjoyed that quite a bit. I had a small marketing company where I would help, older people get pretty much caught up and acclimated to Facebook advertising and Google AdWords, stuff like that. I was really helping people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s kind of translate that language that they couldn't speak. They knew they needed to do the advertising, but they didn't really know how to do it. So I was getting, I was like 19, 20 years old. I was putting on a full suit and tie, getting up at 6 a.m. and meeting these networking groups at like 5 in the morning and 6 in the morning. And I was probably younger than most of their kids at that point. So, but they were, real estate agents and all that stuff. And so that was kind of a fun time of my life where I got this sort of exposure for entrepreneurship, I should say. And I started my own business. And actually, it's funny, I keep it here in my office always. My first business license from Arizona, so I keep that here.
Nice.
So I've been an entrepreneur since 2010, so 12 years. That was the first business license I ever got. So way back in the day. And we started. What's that? Yeah, what's that?
No, I said way back, not that far back, but that's
not that far back. Yeah. Well, you got to remember, I'm only 33.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's all relative, right?
Yeah, it's all relative. And yeah, so I went to work for some family members for a year, and I enjoyed it, but I wasn't passionate about it. And I've always been sort of interested in spirits and booze, and not from like just drinking, but also packaging, bartending, mixology and stuff was kind of on the up and up. So when the idea for infused spirits kind of struck, I just kind of stood up one day and I made a few phone calls, some exploratory calls, and I met some really interesting people who ended up becoming business partners who I still work with today, actually. And that was 10 years ago. So I just got lucky. I called the right people. I said the right things, and everybody, stars sort of aligned, and people believed the idea I had was good enough to pursue. So we pursued it. And yeah, we did that for a few years, raised some money, got some great awards, got some great, retail placements all over the country and big box stores and Walmarts of the world and all that stuff. And that was great. Yeah. So, we wanted to expand, and I was always from day one, really passionate about whiskey. So, that sort of stuck with me from day one back in like 2012 when I quit and went to go start this company. I was working with a guy from Scotland who had an amazing Scotch business, Scotch collection, just kind of blew my mind back. I'm like, dude, I want to be like that. I want to have a great collection of booze. I want to start my own brands and get involved and stuff like that. So I did. And he became a mentor and a teacher and a friend. And, we just been really fortunate, really lucky, honestly. Met a lot of great people along the way.
It's really cool. Well, what do we think of the rye here? What are we thinking, Nate?
I really enjoy it. I just lit my cigar up because the whole time I've been sitting there trying to figure out what these certain notes that I was tasting were, because it was kind of stumping me for a little bit. And I was like, what is that flavor? I really enjoy it. The first thing that caught me off guard is, so this is 105 proof.
Mm-hmm.
It does not drink like 105.
What does it drink like?
Less.
Okay.
Like, this is an incredibly smooth whiskey for being 95% rye and 2 years. Like, I mean, now granted, for those, that drink a lot of rye doesn't necessarily have to age as long as a bourbon does in order to, get some of that smoothness, take away some of the harshness of it.
Yeah.
But still, with it being 2 year and 95% rye, like, it does not drink like 105. It drinks more like, a 90 or something like that. But it's got good flavor and very unique as well, which, people that know me know I love rye whiskey. So when I can try a rye whiskey that tastes like nothing else that I've had in terms of rye whiskeys, like that's cool for me to try.
I got you. Yeah, I'm a fan. I mean, it's got a nice, I can't really place the note either, but before I lit up the cigar, and I got to be honest, when we received the bottle a few weeks ago at the shop, I cracked it to try it with Brian. That's why there's a little bit missing.
Oh, okay.
Good, 10:30 a.m. pour. But it's
what's the shop?
So the sponsor, Tinderbox at Easton, right? So that's where this is all kind of, that's where we work, and I work there full time.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, Nate works there part time. Been in the cigar industry for a long time. So, so Brian's the owner of the shop. I'm the manager, and so for those also listening for the first time, I mean, that's kind of the hub of this whole community is that Tinderbox, and then you bring in the whiskey side of it. But you can't really ship, I think, a bottle to a residence. It's a lot harder to do that in especially Ohio. So that's where sending it to the business is the easiest way to do it.
You guys don't have a license. I mean, how does serving whiskey work at Can't? No,
Can't do it.
They don't have any mixed license type stuff like we have.
They do. You can get a license. The problem is that in Ohio they basically did a rather lazy way of doing the smoking ban, right? So we have what they call a smoke-free workplace exemption, and a big kicker of that is 80% of your revenue at least has to be tobacco products. So to do a cigar bar, it's very difficult to be able to serve food or liquor and then keep that 80% being tobacco products. You know what I mean? So you wouldn't be able to smoke in there. So
yeah, it wouldn't be worth trying
Cash
to
bar. Cash bar, man. Cash bar.
You didn't see anything, all right? You didn't see anything, all right?
Man, it's weird. Every month,
we have all these
20%, 20%, 20%, 20% every month. I don't know what's going on.
You see all these bottles of whiskey. We don't sell them. We just display them for shits and giggles.
Right. But yeah, so we did sample. I really, it's a nice flavor. Like to your point, I think it drinks around 105. I mean, it's got a little bit of that.
Got a bite, it's got a kick to it.
A little bit, but I think it also maybe it might be confusing just because it does have a little bit of rye spice to it that I like, and I kind of almost hope to expect when I'm drinking it. But it almost had a bit. It's not it wasn't caramel when I first did it. Now I've already lit up my cigar, so it's kind of lost, which I'm pissed about. But
that's why I waited so long to light up the cigar.
There was something there. I don't know if Sean, did you have something to say about the whiskey? Seth, I don't know if is there a certain note that you typically will tell people when they're how to describe what they're tasting?
That's a great question. I hate to put notes in people's mindset. It's very common and it's sort of like this industry practice, but I also kind of grew up or learned in the last decade that everyone has different life experiences. Everyone comes from different backgrounds, cultures, cuisine. So a lot, I could say, oh, this tastes like this dish, this Moroccan dish that I've had that you've never even heard of or something like that. Like I've got a Moroccan grandma that makes all kinds of food that I've never even had it in a restaurant before. Like the only place I can get it is her house. So if I call that out as a note, it's fucking gibberish to most people.
Oddly specific.
So yeah, it's just that's an example. I'm not talking about this whiskey. I'm just talking about tasting notes in general. But with this whiskey, look, I mean, I find the kind of through line with all of the stuff made in Owensboro is a vanilla note that's pretty prevalent. I get a lot of candy corn on the bourbons that you'll try. I find there's sort of this palpable sort of sugar note that real spikes at the front, really dissipates nicely. The rye has just barely the slightest little like minty note at the forefront. It's really more on the nose than anything. And then you do get good creamy, viscous mouthfeel. It's got a nice weight to it. It's not too super thin. It's not too, deep or thick or anything like that. For that you get from a really, really well-aged spirit. It's a workhorse. I mean, you're talking about a $35-ish bottle. So you're not talking about a product that's, you're talking about something that you can make a Manhattan with. You can make a Boulevardier or Sazerac or any of these cocktails. Like, you can do stuff with this product, or you can just drink it neat, and it can probably do pretty well on a rock. If you drink on a rock, it's a good way to sort of approach this, because it's got 105 proof. It won't water down too quickly or too much by the time you finish it. So I like to say this is like the stats on this thing are just really well rounded. Really, really well rounded.
Yeah, I guess I'm with you there a little bit on the the vanilla. I mean, there was like a creaminess. I think that's what it was, but I was almost hesitant to say that because I'm expecting more spice from a rye. Sean, what do you got?
I got like a vanilla cream on the front end, very smooth, very just the whole way down. I get a little. I may have some heartburn, but I get a little burned down, like well after I swallow it, not going down like way after it's done. But I get have heartburn. I don't know.
Could be
heartburn. It's almost like you're waiting for the heat, and it never really comes. It never really hits. So it's kind of a nice relief when you're expecting that, and it's more of just a nice, smooth, sweet, creamy from front to finish. And it's very good. Very good.
I was kind of pleasantly surprised. You said that the MSRP is around $35. Just in presentation alone. I mean, it looks and drinks like a more expensive bottle. Not putting any ideas into your head by raising the price of this, but I think it is. It's a nice bottle.
Well, and you think about it, we've talked about in the past, some of the newer whiskey makers or companies that have been out there. It's almost impossible nowadays to find a new up and coming whiskey name, whether it be a bourbon or a rye, and find that product really under $40 or $50. Like 40 to 50 is basically where you start at, and everything just kind of goes up from there.
Yeah.
So when he said $35 ish, I was like, man.
Yeah, it depends on the state or the retailer. It can vary. We can only control it. We put the price as it goes out the door, and then shipping costs and the wholesalers and the state taxes, and there's a lot of different variables at play that will ultimately dictate the price that this ends up at on a retail shelf.
Well, and if this was available in Ohio, it'd be the same price everywhere in the state.
Yeah, in Ohio, 100%. There's 17 states like that where the price is set. So, somebody was asking, what's it like to be a small producer surrounded by the giants like Beam makers? I'm going to say Heaven Hill, Buffalo Trace, etc. Especially during these whiskey boom days. Honestly, I think it's a lot of fun. I feel like people in my seat, and there's plenty of companies like us that are young, nimble, crafty, creative. Look around me. I'm very supportive of everyone else's brands too. I want to always shine light on brands that I like, and whiskeys that I like, and spirits, mezcals, whatever, gin. I love it all. So I think it's a lot of fun these days. It's fun to kind of see what the big guys believe are creative and feel like, you're 5 years late on this. buddy. It's kind of fun. You look at brands like I have Basil Hayden from Jim Beam. Like that, they keep putting these products out and they just keep hitting that 40%, 80 proof on all of them.
Yeah.
And I was like, as a consumer, as somebody who really wants to buy these products, like I'm just not going to spend my money on these 80 proofers, man.
We talked about that when we did the
I don't need
10-year.
that. Like,
yeah.
And the smoke finishes and whatever they're doing, like it's just not, or even Angel's Envy, which I would consider them pretty large relative to ourselves. They put out a Mizunara, but it's $2,500 a bottle. Like I was putting out Mizunara 3 years ago for $50 a bottle.
Right.
And then I got 95 points on it. It was a very well received product that sold out immediately and did really, really well. And so that was kind of one of those points where I feel like there's a lot of stuff that I'm doing and people in our sort of class and tier of producers are doing that are just, we're running circles around the big guys in a lot of ways. And so it's very similar to beer or craft beer, where the Anheisers couldn't really move as quickly or think as creatively with their corporations. And so that's why they end up buying a lot of these craft brewers, and a lot of the big spirits companies are buying craft distilleries, is because they can't quite think as wildly or take as many risks or be as flexible or turn on such a short notice. We've done a lot of creative things. I put out one of the first cast strength wheat whiskeys that was finished with cognac barrels. We call that the Reckoner. We put out a rum finished American whiskey 7-year-old, a peach brandy cask finish. That was pretty cool. And all the, our maple Mizunara, we took leftover Mizunara, rebarreled it in a maple barrel, called it Maple Mizunara. This is a lot of fun stuff we've done. A lot of these things are happening in Los Angeles, not Kentucky, but still, even just our base product. I mean, it's triple cask finish, available for $35 with a Rockstar package. So it's just it's kind of a fun thing to be able to offer that and do that as an everyday kind of like standout product. So,
well, I think when you're a smaller brand, you have more control of things, and so you can quickly add things or change things. There's not a whole lot of layers of approvals and committees that you have to go through. I think that's why sometimes those bigger brands tend to lag a little bit behind, is there's so many people involved. There's so many steps. There's so many committees and approvals and meetings and marketing. And by the time they actually come out with something, like you said, like they're behind the smaller people that are doing the same thing. But I think that's because they're so big, they become slow and a little incompetent at doing things, right then and there.
It was getting very pointed at one point. I was with you, and then you incompetent. I remember back to I had the opportunity to meet Eddie Russell, and one of the stories that he had said when he was kind of taking over the master distiller title away from his father is when he started doing some of those projects. Mm-hmm. Jimmy's just like, don't fuck it up. It's like a typical dad, right? You know what I mean? Like, dad, thanks, dad. Thanks for the tough love there. But, you have some, I think, the bigger companies, and I want to hear what you have to say about it too, Seth, is that it could be some of the stuff that Nate's talking about, but a lot of these big boys, I mean, they've done it a certain way for years and years, and that's how they do it. I remember that's what, like Eddie said about his father, is like the reason that it was 101 is because that's what he thought it should be.
There's a comfort,
and it was just routine. Like, that's it. This is what we do here at Wild Turkey, and this is how we're going to do it. And then when you have someone, fresh blood come in, fresh mindset, if you will, not trying to totally reinvent it, but I mean, doing some more interesting products that, to your point there, Basil Hayden's, you're right. I mean, for some consumers, proof's not everything. In the current craze we're in, I think proof says a lot. And I think having a variety of it, like I see on this table here, you've got a variety. And I think, it's really cool to see that But I think some of that creativity is a reflection of you for sure. You know, it's something that you've been in it for as an enthusiast for many years, and you've been doing this part of the business for 10. And I think it shows when you've got decades and decades or a couple generations of distillery, family there. It's different.
Yeah, I think I've got all the Master's Keep Wild Turkeys, and I
Sure.
find them. I actually prefer those to a lot of the Buffalo Trace products or others. Not from just pure quality, but you get frustrated when you see like Weller or some of these products that go out there and they're supposed to cost, 40, 50, 60 bucks and they're going for 500, 600. It's like, well, at that point, I'll just pay 150 bucks retail, normal retail price for this beautiful Master's Keep bottle and this big fancy box and this beautiful cork and this story and, older whiskey and all this stuff. And there's so much information and it's transparent. I like that. So I actually like whatever's going on. Whatever's been going on at Wild Turkey for some time. Wild Turkey and also Heaven Hill are some of my favorite distilleries because for the most part, the bulk of their products are available, affordable, produced in quantities that everybody can get. There's no game of how much Platinum 7 or Wheatley's vodka can you buy in order to get one case of Weller, which, I have a lot of friends that are retailers and it drives them nuts, it drives them crazy how much shit they have to buy that doesn't sell or is only there, is only making a name for itself because of these allocations and these, it's a whole dance that's done. So I respect Wild Turkey tremendously and I love what they do. And I think they're really, really cool about giving, a pretty fair price on pretty much everything they make. I mean, even Russell's 10 is like, I've seen it for $26 for a 10-year-old bourbon. Like guys like me will never be, there's no craft producer that's going to put out a 10-year for under 50 or even 80 bucks really. I mean, it just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So there's something to be said. I mean, that's what you're going to get from the big guys that you won't get from people like us. But what you will get from people like us are, again, cast strength wheat whiskeys with cognac finish or, stuff that just so off the beaten path, like triple peated cask finish, single malt, like that stuff like that is just not only is it not coming from the big guys, it's not, at least for our own, talking about Broken Barrel, it's not coming from anybody. Like there's a handful of things that I've done that my team have done that no one's ever done. So there's certainly something to be said for that and the risk taking and all that. And then, somebody asked, have you faced any game over type challenges? Dude, there's every year there's a game over type challenge. Every year there's something happens where you're like, oh, this year, I mean, let's just talk about 2022.
Yeah.
There was a huge run on the ports. If you guys were watching the news, ships coming over, we get our glass from overseas. And so ships coming in couldn't unload their containers at port. So, there was a massive delay and we actually ended up going from August until March without making a single bottle of whiskey in Kentucky. So our entire 4 core products were running on fumes. Markets were running out. Store shelves were empty. So look, it was a, you take a step back and you go, how can I run a business making whiskey once every 7 months? Like that's not viable. That's not a business. That's not a thing. So that's like an album release for a musical artist every 7 months. So it's like, this is not sustainable. So luckily we're going to have our 3rd production run this month in 3 months. So, and we're actually making more whiskey as of the end of May. We're making as much whiskey as we made all of last year. So we really ramped it up. When we did get the glass in, we filled them up with plenty of great whiskey, had plenty of orders, and we shipped it all out and got more orders, got more whiskey, shipped that out too. So we're on our 3rd bottling run this year already. Having received glass, thank God. So, knock on wood, we don't run into that again. But yeah, it feels pretty game over when you're expecting to bottle on January 3rd and it's March 15th, and you're like, is this ever going to happen? Where's this glass? So, we have great partners who are patient, and we all work together. We have great investors, and everyone was very patient with the process, because at a certain point, you pay for everything, and that's it. The ship sets sail, and you just got to wait. You got to wait, man. You got to wait. So.
Yeah, the glasses, that was a big thing, obviously, for you guys. You hear it from even some of the big boys,
Everybody had this issue. Everyone had this issue.
You mentioned it earlier, like Anheuser, like on the beer side of it. I mean, you heard that as well. I mean, there was like
cans.
You can get cans, but you can't get bottles, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But we had that in the cigar industry as well. There were cigars that were rolled and ready, but some of them they'd send out in bundles, because you can do that with cigars, but then, there's some of them that they wanted to come in a certain presentation. They wanted it in the box, and they couldn't get the boxes made because they were short on.
Yeah, what do you do?
Or you couldn't get the brass clasps.
Right. Yeah. It's just like hinges. Basically. Yeah. So that's kind of my point there, is that it's just, what do? You either you sit on it, you know what I mean, and you just wait, or there were some, I mean, I'm talking cigars that are, sell for over $20 a cigar, that they were coming out, like they were tough to find in the first place, but they're like, we got them. We can send you a bundle of 10. And, the box itself is gorgeous. So they don't want to do it, because a lot of humidors are kind of like a liquor store. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you put all this effort into this bottle that I was admiring here. And it's like, well, we can't get that, but I can get you mason jars. I'm going
to basically, but that conversation was going on. It's like at some point in maybe late January, early Feb, we're like, do we just fucking put out like that? I don't know if you guys are familiar, like, they call it like the Nordic bottle, or is it the most basic? It's the Balcones bottle. It's the most basic bottle. It's like every category from gin to vodka, everyone's used that bottle at some point in time. Like it's just the most common denominator of all spirits bottles for the cork top and all that. And we just are sitting around looking at each other going, do we just put our label on that bottle and try and just ship these orders out? But the reality is we did not do that. But the reality is, we've established this new product. Like we only made one run of this Broken Barrel in that package. We weren't about to backtrack or backpedal. So no way. On our vodka, I will tell you, we found very similar bottles. They had a little bit more of like a taper to them, but they actually fit in the same box. Just to give you like perspective, they were that similar.
Okay.
Same cork fitting. So we actually did, if you look hard, you may find one or two variations of our vodka bottles. Those aren't custom bottles to begin with. So, it's just one of those things like we've had to
These
do
are clearly
that,
custom bottles you have.
Those are custom as shit, man. They're custom every inch of it. The bottom, look at the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
There's custom writing on the bottom of every bottle too.
I love it. I mean, the truth is in the
barrel. We got the BB monogram in there. It's all there. So it's a really cool.
Do you have to get like the packaging if you had to get that approved, right? Like there's regulations, or is that not the case? Like you can put it in whatever you want. Like if you had to change the bottle, you don't like you can put it in a mason jar and seal it up if you wanted to. Is that how that works?
As long as the no, you can't actually. There are regulations that if you include the etchings as part of the artwork, which you're supposed to do. I don't think everyone does, but if there's an etching or a screen print or something like that on a bottle, you're supposed to include it on your certificate of label approval, which is COLA.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, you're supposed to put it on there. Not everybody does. And honestly, generally it's just like established 1955 or stuff like that. Is what usually is embossed on the glass. We have a bit more text embossed than the average bottle because there's the belt. There's we call it the belt line, which goes around here.
Yeah, I love it.
Big thing here, and we have the bottom. So there's a fair bit of customization. If you go online, it's like public knowledge. If you go online and look at our certificates of label approvals, you'll see all the various artwork from the bottle listed on those. So we do put that on there.
No, yeah, it is. Again, it's over the top as far as in a good way. I mean, just everything.
We over-delivered on that package for sure.
You definitely over-delivered. I mean, this is something, and I got to be honest. I mean, you said you were kind of into podcasts. You've done this type of stuff where you had this interest in this. there's two sides of this, I think, that you can look at when you don't hear of something like this. You see this on the shelf and it looks this pretty, and I say it is coming in at like say $40 or whatever. Like if it's not sold in Ohio yet, right?
No, unfortunately we are not in Ohio at the moment.
But if I walked into a liquor store and I haven't heard of this, this is kind of a tricky one because it's done so well as far as the marketing side of it, right? It really stands out. But there is that fine line, I think, that you would probably maybe agree with, that as a consumer, you're like, all right, they dressed it up so much. Like, is the juice going to be good? Or is this just, a marketed turd? You know what I mean? It's one of those things. It's like I don't know.
I get it, because there's a lot of.
It's like, man, these guys just knocked out of the park. Why is it not more expensive? Or if it was more expensive, I'm like, are they paying because am I paying for this beautiful bottle?
Package, yeah. So I think it's
tricky when you walk into a liquor store.
We've had some.
Look, I think there's a few thoughts there. If I had to take a step back to maybe, I started the process in September of 2020.
Yeah.
Started doing the rebranding, hired the design firm, started seeing that whole quarter, the fourth quarter of 2020, I was looking at, bottle examples. And I think we kind of nailed it by this time last year, maybe even earlier, maybe March. We're like, all right, this is exactly what we're doing. And then we started pushing all the buttons, and then it's 6 months to get this stuff out the door and into people's hands by August of last year. But yeah, I think first of all, there's several inspirations for this bottle. There's certain bottles I've always loved and admired, and I thought, okay, well, look, here's the reality. A bottle mold is a bottle mold. So whether I just took the existing bottle we were using and put my name on the bottle, or did the entire mold as you see it right there.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm being fooled by this little baby bottle.
Are you getting the little
plastic part got stuck in
it?
Yeah,
don't put those back in. You can just throw those out.
No, I kind of want to mess with whoever does it next.
Yeah. So people are commenting what's it trying to make up for? So I think one thing it's important for consumers to know, and everyone that's just going to stores and visiting and looking at bottles, don't be fooled. For the most part, other than weight, the design of a bottle, when you make a mold, you make a mold. Whether the mold is the most complicated fucking thing you've ever seen, or a regular bottle with your name on the glass and that's it, it's still a mold. The mold costs about a couple $1,000s in China, or maybe in France you might pay $20,000, $30,000 for that mold. It varies, but you get a mold, that's it. So whether it looks gorgeously nice or not that nice, that's kind of an opinion. People may love or hate our bottles.
Sure.
People may see our bottles and be like, oh, I hate that. I like more classic, traditional Scotch style bottle or whatever. People have different opinions, and that's what makes this all so much fun. But I think people are kind of like, oh, this mold costs more than that mold. That's not the case, really. I mean, I could have sent them any file, and the mold fee was the mold fee. That's it. If I told them, hey, I apologize, I didn't realize that Seth was reading comments. I would have put that differently.
No, he said I would put that to him directly.
I'm fixed in, dude. Don't worry.
He says directly. He said differently. Ray is not one to be bashful. He's fairly polite, but he is there.
No, I love it. Dude, that's perfect. But the whole, what is it dressing up for? I think here's the thing. We're talking about a minimum age of 2 years in a blend that doesn't go over 5. So, and you got to keep in mind that Green River Owensboro has only been distilling whiskey since 2016. So their oldest whiskey is turning 6 this year. So nothing older than 6 years ever left their doors.
So they're new as well.
They're very new. Yeah. But they put out a 5-year, for $35. So we're putting out something a little younger. So, what are we trying to make up for? But that's sort of the reason it's not $50 or $60 or $70, even though it looks and arguably tastes like it could be worth that. It's because, look, I'm not selling anyone or promoting a whiskey that's 5, 6, 7, 8 years old for the products we're talking about. I do have 7-year-old products, but those are a little older and they're fine spirits. They're $80 something, and I mean we never even hit $100 on anything.
Okay, but you do have, so it makes sense. There's logic behind
There's
it, and
tiers, yeah.
But see, I do admire that because there are so many out there. These newer, call it either smaller distilleries or even someone like yourself. It's not even your distillery, so and again, I feel like I wasn't picking apart the bottle. I mean, you kind of know where I was going.
No.
With that.
I appreciate it though.
Same thing with the price. Like if a lot of companies that are in your shoes, there's added dollars if like basically depending on how the business relationship is. Like if you're buying from a manufacturer and then selling it as your own product, that is in a sense like a middleman type of a thing where there's usually added costs. I'm just baffled, and again, I admire the fact that you're able to do what you're doing, and you've worked on a relationship with someone like this Owensboro, the Green River, that you're able to do that and to just everyone wins, including the consumer. Where a lot of times, if you describe this to me and you hadn't disclosed the dollar amount, we've talked this far into it, and there's a relationship and what you're doing and like the bottle, and you're explaining to me now where I would expect this bottle to come in at like a $50 price tag.
Yeah, 50, 60 is kind of like the general.
Just so you get your cut, they get their cut. You got to pay for your smaller company. You got to pay for this. You got to pay. Maybe you have investors that need to get paid quicker than they than you'd like to a lot of times. But yeah, so I'm fascinated by this. I'm also sipping on. Nate's just blowing through these samples here.
I'm pouring much smaller samples than you are.
It's not my fault. This is the California Oak Kentucky Straight Bourbon
88.
Whiskey.
I think it's worth mentioning, like we didn't really talk about, the rye does have a triple cask finish of sherry cask, French oak, and then ex-bourbon barrels, all contributing to the layers and the complexity of the flavor there. So it's not just that it's,
that's that oak bill,
younger whiskey, but it's also fortified or bolstered by these casks that we've selected and broken. And so that whole contribution is another reason why, we got a double gold medal this year on the San Francisco gave us double gold on that rye. We got 93 points from tasting panel. So these are well-regarded, well-reviewed spirits that are standing up. We have the same awards at this point now that the core lineup of, say, Michter's or others have on their ryes and bourbons and whatnot, sour mash. Those are 93, 94 point whiskeys. I think one of them maybe is 95. And we're getting the same scores, which is awesome. Freaking awesome. I mean, so we've got all the way up to 95 points on our whiskeys on some of them. So, and double gold medals, we've got several of those on whiskey now. So the whole core lineup actually has now received 90 plus point scores and gold or higher, gold or double gold medals. So with that in mind, it's really freaking cool to see the response to these new package, new recipe, older blend whiskeys that we're putting out from what we were, what we started as. I think a lot of people that came in really early and grew with us are going to reap the benefits of knowing how much better this is, now today than even it was a year ago or a year before that, because we've been growing with Green River. We've been working with them, and as their whiskey, first whiskey ever was 9 months old in 2017. For stuff that they had made in 2016, So we've certainly got to a point. I think we're more appropriately aged, packaged, and profiled, like a taste profile for the mass market and for a national kind of rollout today than we ever were before, which is great. So I'm really happy with where the company's at today, where the whiskey's at today. I mean, I'll be honest with I made a bunch of whiskey and I drank most of it, in the early days. I'd drink a little here and there. My wife and I are like pounding these rye cast strength. Like we're going through bottles at a pace that we never did before. And I just like look at her. I'm like, this whiskey's fucking amazing now. Like it's really fucking good. So she loves the rye. It's her favorite. By far. And so I like the cast strength. It's my favorite, the black bottle.
Yeah, that's why we're saving that for last year.
Yeah, it's really special. I mean, it's a really, really good whiskey. For that one's about 45, let's say, plus or minus.
Jesus.
115 proof, and it's just great. So
I like this California oak. Just before we move on, 80% of the oak bill is Central Coast Cabernet staves. 20% new French oak. So completely different, obviously.
More your wine staves.
Especially this is our wine finish.
Mm-hmm.
This is our wine finish. We always put a little. It's my secret sauce. I mean, it's not a secret because it's on the label, but my secret sauce is French oak. I mean, I love French oak. I think it really pulls back a lot of stronger notes, stronger flavors, sweetness. It really starts to absorb and absolve some of that sweetness that you get from rum casks or sherry casks. So we do a port finish on one of our reserve oak series. Like we put French oak in there, a peach brandy cask. We put a little French oak, and that stuff just that's what Broken Barrel does. Is we balance. We're always trying to balance the scales to create a balanced product that isn't all like. I don't want to sell a peach brandy finished bourbon that just tastes like peach brandy and has no characteristics of bourbon or oak or sort of this mixture of things. So, and someone's asking, how do we pick?
Yeah, I was getting to that here.
Barrel staves, aged product. These recipes. I mean, look, 3 of the 4 recipes that you guys are trying tonight over there and have the same oak bill. We love this oak bill. It's 40% French oak, 40% ex-bourbon, and 20% sherry. We use that on our small batch, our cask strength, and our Heresy Rye. So that's sort of like the main sort of recipe. That's our go-to for our core lineup. 3 of the 4 are exactly the same oak bill.
So I guess I'll build off of Lou's question there when he asked how do you pick the barrel staves to add. What's that process look like? I mean, it's enough. I mean, working with that distillery, I mean, do they offer like, hey, this is what we're working on as far as mash bills? Because obviously it takes time to get to that point, right? Where you're trying some different stuff there. But with what you've done with Broken Barrel and doing this whole oak bill, I mean, what's the trial and error action going on there? I mean, is this?
I mean, it was it was a year of trial and error prior to the first. This is the original oak bill. This is what we started with in 2017. So it's the process of coming up with that oak bill was whatever we were doing in 2016 and 17, which was basically, I mean, it's pretty crude. I mean, in 2017, we were in a small office building in LA, like 900 square feet. I mean, we got 7,000 square feet now in downtown LA, and beautiful, 18-foot ceilings, and we got 50 barrels in the back, and
we would love to visit. Thank you for
28-foot bar. The whole works. Like, it's really gorgeous here.
Quit bragging.
It's awesome.
It's awesome, man. I love it.
It's great. The funny part is we're moving. Actually, we're gonna leave it all behind.
Now it's gonna be 25-foot ceilings.
No, we're gonna probably lower the square footage for the office. We have it's kind of split 3,000, but there's only 5 of us here. We don't need 3,000 square feet of office space.
How big is your office right now?
My personal office probably a couple hundred square feet.
All right. Nothing.
It's not crazy, but it's just, and my office is crazy. Like I've got
about half the size.
I showed them earlier.
Yeah.
So
pretty nice office.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
I love the decor.
And not too shabby. All right.
I got some art. Around me.
Great.
Actually, speaking of art, I got this. This is a fun one. The infused spirits. I got the.
Hang on, keep it on that. I want to put you on us. There we go.
That's one of my pieces of art. Buddy of mine drew me as the infuser, which was awesome.
The infuser, superhero, right
I'll
there.
show. Yeah, people can see the office.
Yeah, for sure.
Got bottles. We got more bottles over here. Some wine over there, and then
That's a pretty sweet setup.
It's great.
there.
It's awesome. It's really awesome.
Have you ever had tasting sessions, on an unrelated note, tasting sessions late at night in your office that you ended up passed out on your couch /
Yes, I can't do
decided
that
to
anymore.
not drive and sleep? I don't know how you want to
Can't
word
do
it.
that anymore. I cannot do that. My wife, that was one of the biggest troubles I ever got in, was sleeping at the office and coming home at like 5 a.m. And she was like, "Where the fuck were you?"
I didn't want to drive.
I did that one time. And I will never do that
Come
again.
on.
I was trying to be responsible. That was my argument. I was like,
The couch looks
would you rather me
comfortable.
drive
Yeah,
home drunk or sleep on the couch? And she goes,
Right.
neither. I'm like, oh, I can't win this one. There's no way.
Yeah, you're not going to win that one. That's for
You're
sure.
not going to win. You just whatever it was I did it wrong.
So this one that I'm sipping on right here, the small batch, is that your core product?
That is the first original #1, like heavy, original product. That's the original. That's the OG.
Would you sell the most of that?
Oh, by like 2 to 1 on everything else. Yeah.
That keeps the lights on there.
That one's registered with the Navy, with the Coast Guard. That one's in the state of New Hampshire. That one is
From the small batch.
I know.
Where else? That one's been in Trader Joe's in several states. I think it's in Walmart in a couple markets as well. That one's just really been a power horse for us.
Right.
I think it's just right. It's right where everyone wants to be at. 95 proof, $35. Straight bourbon, great package. It's just all there.
I got to be honest though. I mean, and this is a nice pour. Obviously, moving on from that, the California, is that what it was?
California oak.
California.
Yeah, it turns it up a bit.
It does.
Proof.
It does. I'm glad we started with that rye though.
Yes,
the rye's better. Better.
It's. And again, it's almost like this has got a lot of legs on it for sure. Yeah. That's for sure.
The rye is a little bit more complex.
Yeah, it's almost like you came out with a core product, which is fantastic. But yeah, with that rye, to your point, like what you and your wife, enjoying that so much, the things that it seems as though like you continue to learn as time goes on what you're putting out. Not saying that the small batch, which is your core product, it's not a bad bottle. It's just it's not nearly as unique, in my opinion, as like this rye product. I mean,
I think there's far fewer sherry cask influence ryes as well relative to bourbons. Right. So,
like this is good. This is good. It's. I mean, it's probably a smarter business move to come out with what you would expect from a bourbon. Like I've never heard of Broken Barrel, and you see this, and you're like, what, that is good. That 95 proof. All right, I'd buy that again.
No one's gonna look back and be like, man, I way overpaid for this. Like it's Correct. Not like, it's not, you start, I think the expectations, like you start reasoning or rationalizing with yourself, you get into 40, 50, 60, and you're like, all right, $60, like, is this 2 times better than a bottle of Old Granddad 114? Or is this is this worth 2 Evan Williams Bottled and Bond?
That's exactly right.
But that's how most people, I try to think like not what I would buy, but what would other people buy? You got to put yourself in everyone else's shoes, whether it's this person, that person, are you really going to pay $40 or $50 for bourbon as young as 2 years old? No, you're not.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. And so that's why I wouldn't pay for it. And therefore I wouldn't charge it.
Right.
I wouldn't do that. Like I would never want to be the guy that's doing that. If we start increasing the minimum age to 3, 4, 5, and that becomes our standard core product, you'll see the price go way up. But
is that the goal here with the?
No, I don't think it is. I really don't see that as being. If we got a business partner that was going to invest in that happening, or that was like a direction that they wanted to see the company going, and they were going to fund it, and it wasn't coming out of my pocket or my investors' pockets. I could see that being a way to go in that direction. It's kind of like you think about like brands that came out pretty like high up, like Blue Run, that are kind of working their way down towards more affordable options, or like Kentucky Owl, starting in the hundreds, and they're coming down with the Wise Man, which is around $40-something. Which, by the way, their rye whiskey, we beat them. We got one more point.
What?
So about a month ago, one of the games I played, the reason I raised my hands, one of the things I like to do on Saturday nights after we close up the shop, I like to do a blind pour for Steve and Josh, the other two guys I
Okay.
closed the shop up with. And about a month ago, I got a bottle of the Wise Man Rye. And it was in the Kroger right up the street in the locked case. It was $50. And the people,
$50.
there were 6 people behind me, and I'm sitting there asking the guy, like, yeah, can I get this bottle out of the case? And all 6 of those people had bottles in their hand. They're like, what does this guy know that we don't know? And I took that bottle into the shop, and when I bought it, I didn't even realize it was a Kentucky Owl product. And I was sitting there going, this was worth spending $50 on this rye. And like you were right on too, because I like to have them guess the proof. Steve guessed 100 proof, and it was 100.8.
Yeah.
But that was such an enjoyable bottle. Like the first pour out of that bottle was amazing.
Well, I think that's, going to your, what you were getting at there, Seth, is that, I get what you're saying. I'm not saying push the small batch, your core product, to a 4-year, but I mean, you can kind of see with all the things you're doing, is that something that maybe you have a secondary, if you will, bourbon, a more aged bourbon. Like if you could, do a broken barrel small batch aged, or some sort of, you tweak it a little bit like this. Yeah, it's a $55 bottle now. You know what I mean? But this is something
we're working on some ryes that are going to be higher priced.
Okay.
That we've got a rye it was a custom order for a customer that in South Carolina that wanted to do mezcal and honey.
Mm-hmm.
So they did a honey barrel and a mezcal barrel. And we bought those and blended them up and put them with a rye whiskey, and that'll go out as our honey smoke rye, which will be pretty cool. So the honey smoke rye will be coming out. It's one barrel. It's a single barrel. Again, when we do a single barrel, it's literally like one barrel. So you get like
literally
150 to 180 bottles. And that's the total for the world. And it's all going to one state, to one retailer. So it's stuff you'll see on the Instagram page, but it won't really ever, unless you're in South Carolina or the store that we tag. We're pretty on the spot with like when stuff's coming out. Like I'll tell you guys, we're posting about a product that's going on sharedpour.com. It's going to be this one. This one's coming out on Friday. We put 4 bottles on our website, literally 4 bottles.
Wow.
They sold out already, but this is 120 proof. 4 bottles. Yeah. I mean, I pulled a few cases. I kept a few for me, and I put a few on our website with our retail partner. I mean, look, I try to reward people that are like on it, like people that are following, and that are people that follow, people that are paying attention. Like if you just check it every couple days, you'll see what's going on.
Yeah.
Like our stuff doesn't sell out in like 2 seconds. Like we're not that big or that well known. So there are opportunities. If you're just paying like even moderate attention, you could probably get something cool that we're putting out. This is 120 proof. It is a 7-year, and it was finished with a Sauterne cask. I don't know if that
is that a rye. Is that a rye?
No, it's an American whiskey. It's actually 85% corn, 15% rye. That's not really showing up on the camera. It's 85% corn, 15% rye, and it's 75% Sauterne cask, 25% French oak. That was a pretty cool one.
It's very cool. Is that mostly on Instagram, or is it on Facebook?
So it's Instagram. Instagram's kind of our main
channel. What's the Instagram handle there?
At Broken Barrel Whiskey.
Okay.
Yeah, I tagged them earlier.
Nice.
This guy was at a mezcal bar for dinner.
Yeah, Nook. Yeah. So you mentioned Green River is the distillery you work with, and they're newer. They started in 2016. You said.
Yeah, we've been partnered with them.
Are they doing
17?
Are they doing the traditional 53-gallon barrels?
Yeah,
all
absolutely.
Right. I wanted to ask that because we've seen a lot of
Owensboro. You better be.
Yeah. If you're in Kentucky, you better be, because we've seen a lot of newer companies that want to try and jump the gun. So they either use smaller barrels, or they use some sort of method to force age on a product.
Pressurized aging.
Yeah, pressure, almost like a pressure cooker.
No processing.
Yeah, so that's why
there was a whole thing. There was a whole thing with Green River. They rebranded and renamed. the company was called OZ Tyler, which was purchased by a corporation called Terrasentia, and they had a process called Terra Pure. I don't know if you guys are familiar with any of this. Some of the people watching might be, but they were into the rapid aging and had put out a lot of private label products for Total Wine and other major big box retailers where they were rapid aging. But it was in 2018 or 19, they took a hard turn and really stopped doing a lot of that rapid aging and promoting it and talking about it. And what they did is they really got into the more traditional aspects. I mean, they were sitting on a historical gold mine because Green River Distillery was founded in like 1885, I think, or the 1880s, 1890s. It's DSP KY10. So distilled spirits producer number 10 for the state of Kentucky. Heaven Hill being number 1. Right. Mm-hmm. So these guys are like 9 distilleries licensed after Heaven Hill. They're one of the oldest. They're way before like Maker's Mark or Peerless, which was DSP 50. And these,
I was going to bring that up.
To keep that DSP number, somebody had to pay the renewal fee every however many years along the way for over 100 years.
Holy
shit.
Thank
God. And this was at one point in time.
Or people.
Yeah.
It's multiple families, generations of people, literally generations upon generations.
It's got to be, yeah.
So, I mean, the Medley family was distilling there up until, I think, the 90s. The whole thing was mothballed for like 20 years. It was a whole deal. So, but it's operational, it's functional. And to your point about barrels, they put out 90,000 full 53-gallon barrels a year. Nice. We also, talking about smaller barrels, I've got a handful, maybe half a dozen. They're not technically called quarter casks, but I keep calling them quarter casks because they're about a fourth of a bourbon barrel. Yeah. But actually, little fun fact, a quarter cask, by definition, by all Europeans, is actually 125 liters, which is a little over half a bourbon barrel. But it's in reference to being 1/4 the size of a sherry butt, which is 500 liters.
Okay.
So 1/4 of 500 liters is 125 liters.
Did not realize.
So it's a kind of a weird shape size to be a true traditional European quarter cask. But yeah, it's we have these 15 gallons, these little guys, and we're actually finishing with them on some rye whiskey barrels. So we're doing a little bit of rye in those quarters.
A lot going on.
We got a lot of weird products coming out, and a lot of it is for like these private customers. We have a pretty good. It's not an official program, but we do take requests, and I work with people that kind of like, I want to break a barrel, or I want to mix this with that and that with this, and I want to do it on a rye or a single malt. I mean, we're doing wheat, single malt, corn, rye, bourbon. We're doing it all. So a lot going on.
It is a lot going on. Would you so say, just for people that are, say, local to us in the Ohio area, which we do have people from all over, but we do have a lot of listeners in Ohio, can they also participate in some of the Instagram things like you're talking about, or you just can't ship to Ohio?
We are not supposed to ship to Ohio.
Good answer. All right, got it. That's all I have to say.
That is the official message. We are not allowed to ship to Ohio.
That's it.
Just ship to a tinderbox, and then we can.
Just tinderbox.
No, I'm not gonna. You're gonna get us in trouble now. The tinderbox.
Tinderbox is trying to coerce me here.
Nope.
Got a private barrel tinderbox at Easton. There's gonna be
where
62 bottles showing up next Saturday.
Where in Ohio are you guys?
We're Columbus.
Columbus, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But I was just curious. So yeah, I mean,
I was gonna say, if you guys were in Cincinnati,
just go right across the river.
A lot closer to drive across the river there. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are in
like liquor or something.
Yeah, you're at Liquor Barn and Party Source, I assume.
We're at Party Source. We're at a few locations of Liquor Barn, but I don't want to say we're in all of them. I don't believe we are.
That's fine.
How about Michigan?
I think we're about to be. I think we're about to be in all Liquor Barns. That was in progress last time I talked about that.
What about I guess Charlie Creekmore's asking, what about Florida?
Oh yeah, we're all over Florida.
How about Michigan?
Yeah,
Maybe.
no, not with these new whiskeys. No.
How about you in the Chicago area?
Yeah, Benny's got the stuff.
Very good.
So we're in Chicago.
I'll be heading there in a little bit here, so I'll make sure to grab something. Hopefully this rye is there because I don't think that rye is going to last very
Benny
long.
should have the rye. I'm like 80-90% sure Benny's got the rye.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Nook, who is watching, Party Source, he already knows that you're in Party Source. So obviously some of our listeners, Nook's actually with a cigar company, CLE and Asylum, and so he travels that area. So
yeah,
I think some people have definitely heard of Broken Barrel that most likely aren't in Ohio. I mean, again, not, I was really I've been really happy working with Aaron, who's, doing PR for you guys.
Yeah, great guy.
He's hooked us up with some great ones that he's been working with, and it's always a treat to try something new and learn about something that, as someone says, Ohio's the worst to deal with. I mean, we know that on the cigar side, and we also realize that there's a lot of products that, the Ohio liquor department, they're doing some great things. They really are. They're trying to really expand, especially on the bourbon side, the whiskey side. I mean, they're really being active as far as growing what's available and trying to continue to embrace and harness the craze that is out there right now, because I love the fact that it's going to be, state controlled pricing. I hate the fact that this is like one of the primary markets where people will just buy it. They'll wait there, for a truck day at a store, and they'll buy something like, a Buffalo Trace, and they're just basically putting their kids through college while we're just trying to have a drink. You know what I mean? Like, I don't hate people that do that. I mean, that's whatever you want to do. It's just, it's an unfortunate side of things where if you want to try some different ones where, I want to try some of these nicer.
Well, I don't know what it's like in Ohio. I know in Kentucky, where I'm way more familiar. I mean, I've been to Kentucky quite a few times, and I've spent, I love the setup there where a lot of their liquor stores got little bars in the back, and you get a damn decent pour for $10 to $15. You can get pretty much. I mean, I got pictures of me drinking, Parker's Heritage or whatnot, or Four Roses single, $15, $14, nothing crazy. I'll tell you this, guys, we're gonna be out there at this NABCA show at the end of May, which is the National Alcohol Board of Control. It's like the control state show.
Yeah.
They do it in Arizona every year for God knows what reason. It's not even a control state, but they do it in Arizona. So we'll drive out. We'll be at Arizona for a couple nights, and we will hopefully get a chance to chat up. The two real markets that we want to get into are Pennsylvania, Ohio. Those are the two that we really want to crack. We're really happy with New Hampshire, and we're really happy. We're actually doing. I mean, you were asking about small batch bourbon, that yellow label. We did 100. We got rid of 100 cases from the wholesaler. Or the state, I should say, the warehouse in April in North Carolina.
Yeah.
We sold 100 boxes of just 600 bottles, just North Carolina, just this past 30 days.
Well, we hope you have it. I hope it's Jim Knepp out there, and I hope that he is very receptive of that. I don't know if you know that name or not.
I'm not familiar with them. I've never been in North Carolina in my life. So
no, Ohio, when you guys do that. Hopefully.
Got it. Yeah. We'll have to, I've got some real knowledgeable people on my team who are familiar with all the higher ups and all the different markets. They've been in the business longer than I've been alive, put it that way. So they've got me covered, and they make the introductions. I just keep doing the creative crap.
The creative crap. That's a good way to put
it. Creative crap. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I'm finishing this pour of the
barrel strength.
It's the cast, the cast strength 115, which is that I assume is, with the, again, full disclosure, the mash bill and the oak bill. I mean, this is the same as what I was just drinking, the small batch, just all three, cast strength.
All three outside the rye.
But the oak bill is the same as my point.
Oh.
Yeah. The oak bill from the small batch and the cast strength, that's basically similar product, just at a different proof. Is that correct?
Exactly the same product, same age, same place, different proof.
I like the cast strength.
Yeah,
just turning up
20
10%
proof points different.
alcohol. Yeah,
That's amazing. That's amazing. Go ahead.
I think one of the cool things about sampling these 3 smaller bottles that we have in front of us, the California Oak Small Batch and Cask Strength, especially going from, because we after the rye, we started with the California Oak because it was the lightest at 88 proof.
Mm-hmm.
And going from that to the small batch, which is only going from 88 to 95, the difference really is those oak staves that you're using afterwards. And I think that just goes to show like how easy it is to change and impart flavor on a whiskey just by changing something you do at the finished product. Like it's the same mash bill. All 3 of them have the same mash bill, but all they're doing between these 2 is changing the different oak staves they put in at the end. The only difference they're doing between these 2 is changing the proof.
Yeah.
But yet, and that completely changes the taste of all 3 of them.
Yeah, it's a different product for sure.
Which is, for people who are whiskey nerds, I mean, that's such a thing to geek out over.
I want to say, go
exactly.
ahead.
You nailed it. No, I was going to say you nailed it, man. That's you ever need a job in sales, man. you just that's exactly what we tell everybody, man. It's that's exactly what we say is like you're pulling levers. You're just pulling levers like proof, oak bill, mash bill. You're just changing certain elements out, and yet you're getting wildly different whiskeys. And so subtle changes, big differences, big differences. And that
100%.
I'm trying to prove to a lot of people that the finish is really important and really matters and can really drive a whole different experience with the same base whiskey, more or less.
Well, I'll speak to that point just from my vantage point is obviously you mentioned like Angel's Envy earlier. And like, we've had a lot of these companies that are doing the finished in different barrels, the barrel finishing. But most recently, there was a little bit of confusion, I think, for a lot of whiskey drinkers with the makers.
Yes, there was.
So it's interesting to me, and I'm sure you're well aware of this, and it's on your radar. But one of the big boys for those listeners out there, what's it called? Who's
the Maker's Mark 46?
Yeah, but what's it called now?
Well, it's now called Maker's Mark French Oaked 46. But on the side of it,
they talk about the staves.
Yeah,
I mean that's been the whole thing.
It's 10 French oak staves.
But that was super interesting to see, especially prior to talking with you, is that you've been almost embracing this whole thing where someone said like, "Hey, that's heresy. You're not supposed to do that." And now you've got one of the big boys coming out and saying, "Hang on, like this is what we're doing."
They've been doing it. I mean, look, let's be bluntly honest about it. They've been doing it before I was even in the whiskey business. They've been putting out this stave, inner ring finish, whatever. But it's very misconstrued and convoluted, and it's just like RC this, FA though. That it's like these code names.
Yeah.
Where it's like just I don't see why it's so difficult or challenging to just tell people, hey, French oak, it's sherry cask, it's whatever.
It's tradition. I
so
think.
in the last couple of years, Maker's Mark started doing that program where they have 5 different types of oak stave.
I've got one. I've got one over here.
So we had one on the podcast a couple months ago. It was the Caramel Mocha Bomb, which did not live up to its name whatsoever.
Okay.
But so they have 5 different types of oak staves that they use, and they do a total of 10 staves. And based on the different number of combinations you can do, there's 1,001 different combinations. But that's that same thing. Like it's one of those where now, like previously when Angel's Envy, which Seth, you mentioned, Steve, you just brought up, Angel's Envy was one of those first ones to do like a finished barrel.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of considered. That was a finished barrel for a bourbon, and a lot of the purists were completely set against it. But now we've seen the market change a little bit, where not only are they doing finishes, they're doing something like Maker's Mark, where they're putting in different oak staves in order to try and get different flavors, and they call it different things. Like
Angel's Envy's doing that now.
Well, Angel's Envy, when they did the port wine cask finish for their regular product,
Oh yeah, I thought
they
you
were
were
one of
saying
the
that
first ones to do
Angels.
that.
They're not
Gotcha.
doing
I
the
thought you were
staves, to
saying
our knowledge.
Angels
Yeah.
was doing staves, but
Yeah, they're not doing the staves,
Yeah.
but they were one of the first ones to do a
There's only a handful of stavers out there. There aren't that many stavers.
Yeah.
And the ones that are doing staves, very few of them are doing multiple staves. It's usually one kind of stave or that,
Give it a quick summary here, because we had a question in the garage here. What's when you say staves?
Stave finishers versus barrel finishers.
Describe that process one more time.
Dumping whiskey from a full intact barrel into another intact barrel for that finish, where you empty one barrel into another barrel. That's not what we're doing. We are taking I have a video. I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know if these guys can see me or
That's
not.
fine. We can share it afterwards.
Yeah, it's just very, very simply.
You gonna try to pull it up here?
I've got it. It's gonna be, where do I put it? I put it here. This is probably the best video I can show. We just show the whiskey being emptied over the staves. Right? So
it went away there.
One more time. See that?
What's the container?
That's a single barrel container, so it's a 55-gallon drum, but that's just illustrative of the process, which is normally multiple barrels being emptied over way more staves.
Into
that
just
one
like
I
a
just showed
big
you.
vat?
Yeah, I have a 600. We like to use totes, because totes, while they're not very pretty, they are 1,000 or even 1,500 liters, which is 5 to 7 barrels, give or take.
What's that tote made out of?
Plastic.
Okay.
Plastic container. That's how most spirits that are purchased in bulk, if they're not being purchased by the barrel, they're being dumped into IBC totes. So these plastic totes that are in metal cages, you look closely at any distillery, you'll probably see a tote lying around.
That's interesting.
We've got 20 probably lying around. They're great. They're the forklift. You can pallet them. You can forklift them around. They're they're stackable. Yeah. They're unbreakable because of the metal cages. I mean, unless you stab it with a knife, like, you're not gonna.
I don't know why you do that.
Cut through it. No need to do that. So, they're very durable. They're very movable. They're stackable, and they're hygienic and clean, and they don't give off any flavors. It's just a very contained source to kind of move.
Literally just a transport that doesn't.
It's a great transport. It's a great transport, but it's also great for what we do. And so there's lots of pictures on our Instagram of stuff of us putting emptying our barrels into totes, tanks, or even drums, depending on the quantity we're producing of any given batch or single barrel. And then we lower the staves in there, and then we put the whiskey over the staves. So the difference for when I say staver, I'm talking about us, Maker's Mark. I think Noble Oak does staves.
Yep.
God, I'm trying to think of someone else. They're like a handful. That's it. There's very few.
It's a newer finishing process based on like what you were saying with like Nate Angel's Envy. Instead of just dumping it into another barrel to finish it.
Yeah, that's what Angel's Envy does. Angel's Envy is the traditional kind of, I call it the European or Scottish way, finishing a Scotch in the sherry cask is older than probably even the bourbon industry. Don't quote me on that. It's probably not right. But
it seems to be, and correct me if I'm off base here, but like you could literally like take, it would be so much more work and cost if you were to say, all right, I want on your major products, oak bill. So 40% ex-bourbon barrels, 40% new French oak, and 20% sherry cask oak. And I say to you, all right, guys, I need you to take these staves and I need you to make another barrel with these staves. And we're going to finish it in this barrel. As opposed to what you're doing, which is you literally just pour it over the staves. You're like, this makes more sense. I'm going to get.
Well, it's also more surface area.
Yeah. I mean,
Cleveland Underground. Yeah, I remember those guys.
I just put that comment because in the very first year of the podcast, I brought a couple different bottles of Cleveland Underground.
I've got bottles of Cleveland Underground. Believe it or
Hey,
not.
how about that? But yeah, they're one of those that do the different types of staves.
Yeah,
But at the
Applewood,
same
and
time, they're also
They're
artificially
pressurizing that.
aging
they
the
have a
process.
pressure. That's right.
Yeah, through
Yeah.
the pressurization.
They came out early on before I was even in the whiskey side of things, and there was a moment in time where people were at least from my perspective, there was some interest and intrigue in the rapid aging or the this and that.
Yep.
And I think it got muscled out. I think so many traditional, I think the availability and the source of MGP whiskeys that was out from like 2012 to 2020, in those 8 years, so many brands were able to build great whiskey brands on the backs of MGP available stock that they didn't need to rapid age. They could actually afford aged whiskey that was really effing good. So you had
Source
this
it while you
whole
wait, man. Source it while you wait.
source while you wait or while you distill. So you had like the I don't want to quote anyone that was sourcing and that's now distilling, but there's a lot of well, okay, here's an easy one. Smooth Ambler. Like or High West, sourcing while their own juice was aging. Part of the problem is I think you look at High West, like, is the stuff that they distilled any good relative to what they were putting out before? My personal preference is find the old stuff because that was really good.
That's the gamble, right? Especially
That's
if you
the gamble. Is if you can't make it as good, yeah, you might be cheaper or more vertically integrated by doing your own juice, but if it's not as good and you've lost the quality, and here's a real topic. What's going to happen to all these sourcing guys that have made their name that either A, have not gotten situated to make their own juice and have had whiskey aging 2, 3, 4 years now, or are doing that, but they just can't match the quality and or don't have the cash flow to continue to source? Because what's going to happen is MGP, as you all know, it's a publicly traded company. They bought Lux Row, 60 different product lines, hundreds of SKUs, well product, young whiskey, Kentucky whiskey, Indiana whiskey, going into all these different brands. The supply of MGP will be cut. There's going to be a day and time, mark my words, where that cord gets cut. Because these guys are going, why are we building everyone else's brand when we could build our own?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't us build our own brand? So all these guys that have been made, and that's why I love my partnership with Green River and Owensboro, because it's not like that. We're partnered with them. We have mutual interests and we're growing together, and we're one of the house brands within their portfolio. So we don't use, we're not basing everything on wildly old stock. So we have pretty good availability on pretty much, unless we did 1,000% growth next year, which would be,
love to see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good luck with that rapid
I don't
growth.
know if anyone does that, but if we suddenly did that meteoric growth, and we may have a problem with supply, but otherwise, if we're steady, even triple digit growth, we're probably okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I did want to comment real quick on the whole, like, the pressurized thing you were talking about, like Cleveland Underground. I don't see anything wrong with what they've tried to do. And I think that what you've seen with a lot of, not just talking about them, but you've seen some people try to, I guess, reinvent something that's been around for so long.
Yeah.
If the products, if I did a blind taste testing and like, all right, yeah, this has only been, aged for 2 years, but it's, based on the science behind it, it's like 4 to 6 years. And you take a sip here, you're like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Like if we would have been able to sip on some of these things, they're like, holy shit, you did reinvent the wheel. The issue is that I'm looking at, like, I drank some of this stuff and I'm like, no, this tastes young. In fact, it almost tastes, it doesn't taste like a 2-year, you know what I mean? Because you're not even like, it wasn't the same thing. It was almost as if there was someone that probably like looked at this and you're like, well, by the surface area, by the pressure, like scientifically, this should work. And then it's like, cool, yeah, I'm in. And then you actually drank the product, and you're like,
Man,
something's off. We got to go back to the drawing board, because whatever we did those 2 years, we should have left them in there for 4.
I think one of those that was similar to that, but actually worked as far as the shorter aging process was back in 2020 when we did Still Austin.
Right.
That was a Texas brand bourbon. And because they were located in Texas,
Different.
the climate varied more greatly than it does here in Ohio
100%.
or Kentucky. So those barrels actually did age a little bit faster.
More sense, yeah.
So when we drank those products, like one of the things I noted, they were 2-year products.
Yeah.
But the color
I remember,
on the bottles, like it did not look like a 2-year product. It looked very dark.
I love,
that caramel color.
Indian whiskey. If you drink any of the Amrut or the Amrut or Paul John or any of those Indian whiskeys, I mean, some of the stuff is aged in these wild, like insane climates. And so their 3 and 4 years taste like, and these are single malt whiskeys that are aged, some of them are finished and peated. Some of them are peated whiskeys or finished in sherry casks or whatnot. And they're just some of the most amazing whiskeys. And I'm a huge Scotch drinker myself. I've got 200 bottles of Scotch, but I love these Indian whiskeys, kind of all these ones up here. They're fantastic. All these, Paul John, Amrut, and even Cavalon in Taiwan has really interesting climate. So you do get that sort of similar to the Texas effect, or even whiskey. I don't know if you've had Delbach out of Arizona or know, some of the stuff that's aged.
I need to come out to your office so I can try all this stuff.
Yes, you do. But yeah, there's climate is a huge contributor.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Taiwan. Cavalon is fantastic. It's a little pricey. I mean, it's generally around $100 for a lot of this stuff, but Cavalon is a really amazing experience if you like real bold, real rich, like really viscous, really thick whiskeys, and really amazing stuff. I highly recommend Cavalon.
There's just I'm excited to see where the whole industry goes, as far as, with the bourbon craze. Obviously, it's brought on a lot of it.
You got to try new things. I mean, the bourbon craze is pushing a lot of people into new categories. And so that's why we want to see Broken Barrel's kind of bottle and name in the rye aisle, in the wheat aisle, or the wheat section, or the American section, American malt. Like, we don't want to just keep putting out bourbon, because I think a lot of people are going to start migrating away from it if the prices keep getting crazy.
Well, I think if you build off of this, especially the rye product that you brought out recently, I mean, we've gone full circle, right? We did some of
you tried them all.
California, then we've gone to small batch, cask strength, back to the rye. All great products, but this rye one's going to grab some attention. And it obviously already has, some awards. I'm just saying, from a everyday consumer, all things considered. And that kind of takes me into, because you're not smoking the cigar, we'll do a little bit of the Gran Habano, just a little bit of information. We should revisit Gran Habano to do it when we don't have a guest like Seth on, where we can actually get a little bit more. Years ago now, we did the La Conquista.
Yes.
Which is from Gran Habano. So we did a little bit of history on that with the Rico family, but based out of Honduras. This is a great company, Gran Habano cigars. But we're going to talk about this. Seth, this is where we do, at the end of part 1 here, the rating time. So 10 being the best, there's actually 3 ratings. The whiskey, which we're going to focus on the Heresy Rye Whiskey. And then you have the cigar, which is the Gran Habano Corojo number 5, which is, obviously through our sponsor, Tinderbox at Easton. And you're going to then do the pairing. So I know you can't do necessarily the pairing. Do you smoke cigars? We didn't even talk about that.
Oh, you asked me. Yeah, it's yes and no. I mean, really, I don't seek them out. If the occasion calls for it, or I'm somewhere where there's cigars going around, like, I'm in, but I don't seek them out personally.
I got you.
I stick to the one vice.
Steve and I smoked.
You went hard.
Yeah.
I went hard on the one. I took my one lane. I stayed in that lane like an animal.
You put the turn signal on, you hit the pedal, and here we are.
Steve and I smoke cigars on days that end in Y. So
okay.
We
There you
drink
go.
whiskey on the same days.
And whiskey.
Yeah, I'm on the whiskey train on that one for sure.
Yeah.
So I do want to mention the Gran Habano Corojo number 5. So this is a Corojo Nicaraguan wrapper, also a Nicaraguan Corojo binder, and then you have Nicaraguan and Costa Rican tobacco in the filler. So this is a cigar that has been traditionally, since it came out, I want to say it's early 2010s. This is something that has been more of a budget cigar, but not in a sense a bundle cigar. Kind of like with the whiskey world, right? Where you're at with the Broken Barrel prices, you are a budget in a sense. Like I could enjoy a bottle of your whiskey and not be in that middle.
Go get another one.
Echelon. What's that?
You can finish it and just go get another one like it was nothing.
Yes.
That was the intention. Is like I want people to just drink the whole bottle and not think about it and be like, oh, I'll just get another one. Like I don't
You're
want
at the liquor store and you're like, oh shit,
I can't afford it or I can't find it.
Yeah,
I
I killed that bottle last week. I need to restock it. Yeah, exactly. That's the same thing with the Gran Habano.
Yeah, that was the
this
intention.
series here. So, Nate, to you, I will say, we'll include the cigar and everything else. And for those that want more information on the Corojo number 5, maybe we might revisit it when we don't have a whiskey guest on.
All right.
But I'll put it to you
like
though.
a lovely cigar, man. It sounds like
What's
a great cigar. It sounds like a very good, very good value cigar, though.
It's fuller body, which I think you might be interested in what we have to say about the pairing side of it. But
yeah,
on what the cigar? So the MSRP on that cigar is going to be around $8.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is a sub $10 cigar. For years in Ohio, even with the tobacco tax, floating and changing 17% or whatever it was. I mean, this is something on the shelf for a long time. I'm talking like the last 10 years. You're looking at like this $6.95 Toro size that you're just like, why is this $6.95? Kind of like the whiskey, right? Like, why is this $35?
I think what's really surprising about this cigar.
I don't say that because I don't want people to raise the prices.
No. I think what's really surprising about this cigar is on the box, it says that it's a Robusto.
Right.
But they also give the size. The size of the cigar is a 6x50.
Yeah.
Which is traditionally a Toro.
Yeah. It's a Gran Robusto.
So so technically this cigar is an inch longer than what a Robusto typically should be. But yeah, so for the cigar nerds, like in all intents and purposes, it's a Toro. They just call it a Gran Robusto.
Correct.
But yeah, I think this is one of the best bang for buck cigars out
That's
there.
what we're gonna get. I want to go, Seth, if you could. I know I enjoy having the creator of some of these products. When I say with the whiskey, out of 10, when we're talking about the Heresy, the straight rye, what would you give it out of 10 and why? 10 being the best. I know it's tough.
Oh, you got to rank your own product. I mean,
I know it sucks.
It's solid.
It's why I don't tell you about that before you come on.
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm trying to think of like what's the best rye I've ever had. Like what's a 10 out of 10 rye for me? And I've had a lot. I'm looking at my rye collection here. So my favorite rye of all time is actually from the Netherlands. It's called Millstone Rye. They do have it in America. It's about $90 a bottle. It's 100 proof, 100% malted rye.
Wow.
It's a distillery called Zuidam, and they do the Millstone products. And I bought a bunch of them actually on a European website, had them shipped here, like Oloroso finish, single malt, like really great shit. That's my favorite rye. That's the best rye I've ever had. It is a perfect rye. I'm a huge fan of the Knob Creek. There's limited edition 2019. It was really good. That's probably second best rye. I would say this is like it's 8.5. I don't know. It's up there. It's great for the dollar. Like,
yeah,
for the dollar, I'd give it an 8.5 out of 10. I would say, look, if this rye were hitting its 5 or 6 year mark and that was a total blend, yeah, it would be a $70-something product for sure. But it would probably be a 10 out of 10 rye at that point. I think there is some youth to it that is reflected in the price. I think the package is a 10 out of 10 or an 11 out of 10. I think the dollar value certainly gets it in that kind of 8 range, 8 out of 10. That's where I'm at.
All right.
8.5.
8.5 it is. That's the official number.
I think it's a fair score. I'm not
It's
overdoing
tough,
it. I'm
though.
not underselling it. It's a good rye. It's a really good rye.
And what awards did you win with that 8.5?
93 points, tasting panel, and double gold medal this year, just last month.
It's not bad for 8.5.
No, it's a good rye whiskey. I'm like, look, I've had a couple of rye whiskeys that I like better. They're few and far between, but there's a lot of rye whiskeys that I thought I liked that I literally like serving my wife rye whiskey like from some other company because I know she likes rye.
Yeah.
And then we're starting to like realize she kind of like and she's not a professional, but she's very well. She's drank a lot of shit.
She's an enthusiast.
And she's coming back to me going, I like yours better. Like, I'm literally like offering her like, here, just drink some more of this rye that I brought home from the office. And she goes, no, just give me the Heresy. Like, I don't want that. Like I'd rather have the Heresy.
Do a blind taste testing with her and we'll follow up with you.
That's how it goes. You got to save whatever rye is left. Please, if your wives like rye whiskey, let them try it.
I got a feeling that there won't be any rye left after tonight. So we'll have to, when I go to Chicago, or if we make our way, or we have some reps, like Nook, who's actually coming in town on Monday, by the way. Nook, if you are traveling elsewhere before you get back there, grab me a bottle of this. I'll pay you back.
Well, he did say Party Source is one of his accounts.
I just don't know. Nate, go ahead with that.
So I actually wrote down my rating before Seth mentioned the price.
Okay.
So on the Broken Barrel Rye Whiskey, just like Seth, I'm an 8.5.
Nice.
I really enjoy this bottle. And one of the reasons I enjoy this bottle is because it's different than a lot of other ryes. I didn't go into my tasting notes, but initially on the palate, it had this very, like what I expect from a rye, it had this very present floral note to it. But then the sweetness was not like a honey or caramel sweetness. It was more like a bubble gum type of sweetness that I got from this. Quit looking at me like that.
What brand?
Juicy Fruit.
That's super sweet. I was like thinking like Big League Chew, maybe like Hubba Bubba.
But then also
Juicy Fruit.
But then also the finish
it's
on
a better finish than Juicy Fruit, though.
Jesus.
Fruit Stripes?
Fruit Stripes had been gone like that. But then also the finish is what really got me on this whiskey, because we had a pour before we went live, and it's the reason why I hesitated in lighting the cigar for as long as I did, because there was a note on the finish that I kept trying to place. Initially, the first flavor I got, like after I'd already swallowed and gone down the hatch, was this kind of ginger candy note to it.
Mm-hmm.
And some people may laugh at me. Yes, I actually have a bag of ginger candies at home.
So you didn't have to say that part of it.
And so that's why that flavor stuck
Sitting
out.
Right next to your warm Werthers.
I don't have any more Werthers. But then like several minutes after I'd already finished drinking the whiskey, there was still this note I was tasting on my palate that I was trying to place. And it's kind of this lingering buttery toast note on the finish.
No.
And that's what I was really going back to the whiskey to try and focus on, was that finish minutes after I'd already taken a sip.
Remind me how many years are on this product?
Range of 2 to 4.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm an 8.5 on the whiskey.
Cigar.
I really enjoy this. The cigar, I'm an 8 as well. I think this is one of the best bang for buck sticks that you can get out there. At the Tinderbox, this cigar is $7.95, and I think it's a cigar that burns very well. It's got great construction. There were times where I wanted to let that cigar sit to focus on the whiskey. Mm-hmm. Went back to the cigar, and it was still burning.
Yeah.
Great construction, great flavor. I love that Corojo wrapper. So I'm an 8 on the cigar. The pairing, however, I'm actually going to knock it down.
Take a turn here.
The pairing, I'm going to give the pairing a 7. And the reason I do that is that note on the rye whiskey finish that made me want to delay going to the cigar kind of disappeared after I started smoking the cigar. So I got more flavor notes and complexity out of the whiskey before I lit the cigar up.
Mm-hmm.
That's not saying that other cigars might not go better with this whiskey. I'm just saying that this particular cigar, with the flavor and strength that this has, because the flavor on this cigar just kind of coats your palate, kind of like an oily whiskey would. And so the flavor on this one, I think, kind of overpowers, even though this is not a full body cigar, kind of overpowers.
It's fuller.
It kind of overpowers and weakens the flavor of the whiskey.
Okay.
So I'm a 7 on the pairing.
All right.
For you,
Sean, you want to chime in there?
For the whiskey, I really enjoyed it. It's kind of like Nate said. It's just there's just that vanilla cream and just the sweetness to it. I'll give it an 8.5. I'd definitely get it if it came in ever made to Ohio. I did have a particular smell when I would just before I even drank it, I smelled it. It reminded me, I don't know why, for like an old school going into an ice cream shop. Just a sweet
Baskin Robbins.
Were they making their own cones?
Maybe that could be it.
Graders.
It could be something like that. I mean, it's got this. It's like it's a good thing. It's not a weird
transport.
That
with
sweetened grain.
Yeah, it could be it. Yeah, but it was I was like, because like first I couldn't figure it out, and I was like, oh my god, that's what it is. Yeah. So for that, yeah, 8.5. The cigar itself, I mean, for the price point, and just the construction and everything, I'm gonna give it a 9. I really enjoy it. And you said it's more of a fuller cigar.
So especially for Gran Habano, yeah, it is. It's medium full. I would describe it as medium full. Yeah,
man. I mean, it's the smoothest medium full I've ever had. Then I mean, usually
strength, not necessarily. I mean, it does. I mean, it has some strength to it. I think there's a higher nicotine to it.
Really? Okay. Yeah, I love it. I mean, even the retro is good. Leathery notes with the retro. Not much of a burn at all, and I usually get that with medium full. So that's what surprised me. I agree with Nate though. I'll drop it down to an 8 for the pairing. It does kind of take away the flavor once you start smoking the cigars. So, but overall, love them both individually.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So I mean, I agree with all the points. I really am surprised. I got to tell you, Seth, out of the 4 products that you sent us, this rye is my favorite.
Yep.
This rye is my favorite.
Great. I'm glad that was the one we did the full bottle of then.
I am too. I
I actually wrote down ratings on the other 3 bottles too. Yeah, the rye's the highest.
I think the rye is, to your point, the fact that this is a more recent product, I love seeing the small, like we had some questions early on in this part 1 about, the small, being smaller than the big guys and all that stuff it's really cool to see that the growth of what you're able to do as you, with your being a whiskey enthusiast and now a spirit company owner, the direction of the company is, and to me, this is what I took away from some of your comments more recently in this part, is that this, you're going to see some more aged ryes. You're really embracing the rye side of it. I don't know the whole portfolio, but the fact that what you have here in a product under $40 MSRP, it's impressive.
Yeah,
it's very impressive. You talked about it. This is your workhorse. This is a mixer. This is something that you can drink neat. You can drink over an ice cube. You do all that stuff. Some of my favorite ryes are going to be double the price, if not triple the price.
Yep.
100%. Yep. The fact that this is coming in at the price it is, I'm going to give this a 9 actually, because it is just really enjoyable. It's a great sipper. I haven't tried it over an ice cube. I haven't tried it, in a cocktail. I would love to do a rye Manhattan with this.
Oh yeah. Because remember the sherry in there, so you get
right,
a little bit of that sweet, that dark red fruit. It's got a little more of that robust kind of fruit flavor that you get from the kind of the finish on it more than anything. So
I've just really
I
enjoyed it. I
appreciate
mean,
the feedback from everyone. It's really high praise, and
yeah,
we'll take it. We'll gladly accept those ratings and scores and your thoughts and opinions on it. I mean,
it's gonna have to use the outhouse here real quick. I did call you out for the people that are wondering where everyone's leaving to. Yeah. So the cigar, I'll give this cigar a good 8.5 as well. I think this cigar, again, for the price point, it is a very nice medium to full. I think that the Gran Habano company, the Rico family, I mean, this company goes back to the mid to early 1900s. They've done a great job with it. But this Corojo number 5 is, in a sense, much like what you're saying, Seth. This is their workhorse. This is a great seller for them. This is part of the core products. This is something that they've branched off. They've added on blends of tobacco that are one-offs of this, a Maduro of this. They've done other products. This is the number one seller that I've seen, and I'd be curious to have George Rico, who's now he's the son of Guillermo. But he's the one that's running this company, and I'd be really interested to hear from directly him if this is his best seller, because it's got to be. It really does. This hits a lot of palates. It's not too full bodied, like Sean said. It's like it's just a very full flavored cigar. I am also with everyone on this. Sean, Nate, I'm with you guys. I think that the pairing, this wasn't our best. I think it's an okay pairing. I would give this pairing a 7.5. There are other cigars that I would probably pick for this, and for the cigar, there's other whiskeys I'd pick for this. And that's just it's
7.5 is a high score for a lackluster pairing. That's a pretty high score.
to that point, though, is with this whiskey, you can drink it probably with a medium bodied cigar. You can drink it with a fuller bodied cigar. You can drink. You got to tweak it there. 7.5. You're absolutely right. This is a decent rating there. But now knowing your products, I knew the cigar. I didn't know the product as well. I did take a sip. I didn't pair it because, again, 219 episodes in, this is something that it's tough to pull it. What haven't we reviewed so far? You know what I mean? Like now it's like looking at a humidor that has 600 facings. I'm like, well, we've done this, and this. Like we got to do something. I think it is a decent pairing. I think I wouldn't, if I had people over for a fire or something like that, we're sitting on the back patio, and I had a bottle of Broken Barrel Straight Rye Heresy. You guys haven't had this because you can't get it here in Ohio, and they had these cigars. I'm like, this will do just fine. I think this will be a decent pairing. And you're going to be able to taste the whiskey. You're going to taste the cigar. It's just not going to build each other up. That's where I'm at with that.
What was your cigar rating?
8? Run back the tape. I don't know. Too busy talking.
Yeah, you said 8. I think it was 8.
All right.
Thanks, Seth.
I was back
there. All right. With that being said, I want to thank Seth for being a part of this. We are going to roll into a quick intermission. The part 1 went a lot longer than we expected. So in the intermission, we'll talk to you and see if you want to stick around for part 2. But we will beyond the BS in part 2. I want to thank our sponsors. First and foremost, I want to thank Seth for sending these samples. It's fantastic, and I'm very excited. Like I said, even Kristen, she's going to be in Chicago in 2.5 weeks, and she's already saying, she's like, there's a Benny's there. So we'll probably have a bottle or two coming back from Chicago before I even get there.
Just call your Bennies before you go in going, I want this rye, and it's not there. Just make sure you call ahead. I always tell everyone, I don't care if we know for a fact it's there. It's always good to call ahead. Number one, it's always good for us when anyone asks for the product and gets that name floating around people's head. But yeah, it's so definitely call ahead.
Yeah, Charlie also says, Charlie Creekmore says, the Broken Barrel Rye can stand alone and on its own. Great job, Seth. Yeah, a lot of love out there for this product. It's fantastic. And to Nook out there, yes, that was part 1. Yeah, it went a little long. All right, here it is. Here we are. But I do want to thank also our sponsors, Tinderbox at Easton for the Gran Habano Corojo number 5. That was great. Again, cigar. If you guys are just tuning in now live, make sure you listen back to part 1. And then also Altadis USA, we got a Monte Cristo White Series going to be lit up here shortly. quicker for you, I think.
Yeah, and I lit my cigar up after you did.
It is what it is. BS Cigar Company Gold and Silver are also available. All Nicaraguan products. The gold is from Plasencia. The silver is from Espinosa Cigars. So thank you very much. Patreon.com. You guys are amazing. Patreon.com/Bourbon and BS. The monthly contributions to keep this going, to help pay to stream this, to put it on audio, and also to pay for electricity in my garage. We appreciate that. If you want to buy us a bottle, Venmo at Bourbon and BS. And thank you for those that have done that. That's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Let us know. And you can always bring us a bottle if you're coming back to the Columbus area. So thank you very much. And once again, if you like this swag, buy Jack, byjack.com/Bourbon and BS. You can get the 3/4 sleeves that I have in the gray and black. You got the pour one more, light up another. We'll figure this out together. T-shirt. That's a podcast shirt. Yeah, you guys have been amazing as well. We've been selling a lot of swag, which is really cool to see. And if you do that, make sure you post that on the Bourbon and BS community page on Facebook. Seth, thank you very much. Cheers. We'll talk, see what your night looks like for part 2. No pressure. We're going to take a quick intermission on the live feed. If you're listening on the audio, make sure you click to part 2 for part 2 Beyond the BS. Cheers, guys.
Hey, Sean.
We're still live, but that's where we break it on the audio.
Hand Greg the mic. I want to hear what Greg had to say about this rye.
About the rye.
Greg, tell us what you thought about the rye.
I thought.
Yeah, Greg.
Hold it a little.
Greg.
Hold the mic. There you go.
I thought there was like a couple seconds, and then all of a sudden it turned sweet, and it was really a smooth sweet.
Nice.
And then you could taste the bourbon. Which wasn't overpowering. It was smooth. It was like consistent. But then the finish was like almost, it was a little bit sweet again, but it was a different kind of sweet.
Mm-hmm.
It was, it wasn't as sweet as that's after a couple seconds. It really finished nice.
Mm-hmm.
And as Nate said, afterwards, it got sweet again. So there was like so many changes in there. It was really nice.
It's a very
so
complex whiskey.
Exactly. And for you to say it was a 2 to 4 year.
Well, and you weren't here when Seth was first talking about it. So on the bottle, it actually says the mash bill. It's a 95% rye.
Wow.
5% malted barley. It's not one of those where it's like a 51, 53 or 65, just trying to be a rye. No, this is 95%.
Yeah, and that's kind of unconstitutional for how most of that goes. I mean, this is really different. I thought it finished like it was sitting around for a long time.
Did this drink? Because were you here when we talked about the proof on this? Did you see what the proof was?
I was not.
What do you think the proof is on this bottle? I mean, you may be able to see it, maybe not without your glasses.
See it.
All right.
But
does it drink like 105?
No, it drinks like a 90, 93.
That's what I said. I said
like
90.
That.
Yeah.
Did you?
93.
It does not drink like a 95 at all. Or a 105 at all. It's smooth. It's really pleasurable to drink.
Yeah, I didn't get much heat or hug whatsoever from this bottle.
There's a little heat on the third, after the third realm of, when you drink it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's only for a little bit, and it's not bad. It's like I said, it's smooth, and I think somebody said buttery.
Like long after this buttery toast is what I was
just a little bit of that. But then after that after finish, when you're done with it, it has another sweet tone to it, and I'm like, wow, this is really it's pleasant to drink.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Love it. That's why I said it kind of had like that a ginger candy, something that's not too sweet, but it's got something that's sweet but a little sharp, but in a good way.
Yeah.
I thought that sharp was like, first there's nothing, and then there's the sweet, and then there's that kind of sharp a little bit, and then it gets sweet a little bit, and then you get any sharp after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Greg's still talking after you put the mic down.
Seth, you want to stick around or are you heading out?
No, I already knew you.
I can't hear you. Say that again. I'm sorry.
I may have to head out actually, guys. Unfortunately,
No, I know part one went a little long.
Yeah, we went long, but it's all good. It's all good.
Well, I appreciate it, man.
What were you guys going to cover in the second half here? What was the topic? Or
so part 2 is tonight, and it was a last minute thing because again, after 219 episodes, not only is it hard to find whiskeys all the time, but cigars, but also a life topic. And not knowing you as a guest, we came up with what should we talk about as part 2, and the description of that is, just so you know, these days it is apparent that people have a lot to say, and some people won't hesitate to tell you what they think or believe. What is the difference between a conversation and a monologue? How can we work on being better about communication with all the avenues that are available?
And is that just like a life topic or like a whiskey or
no?
It's a conversation, life topic, man.
How do we all get better at like just communicating?
That's right. Trying to stay out of like current events, but it always kind of maybe go to that if we're not talking about an actual topic with someone. So
it does sound like a topic, but it also sounds like it's open-ended enough to go on quite a while. And I think my wife is wondering if I'm home for dinner or not tonight. So
all right, well, I appreciate it. Hopefully,
I told her I was thinking
it's not
I'd
yet
be
7
out.
o'clock there. So
no, I know, but I gotta drive about 30 minutes now. So
understood, brother. I appreciate it. Like I said in the beginning,
I'd love to stay. I'd love to spend all night with you guys, honestly, and just keep going and going. But I miss the kids' bedtime, but hopefully I don't miss dinner. So
understood completely. Thank you very much. And
no, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. I
would love to have you back on at some point.
We could do this again with some of these more exotic, black bottles or something. I like to do the ones you guys tried, so you can kind of get your teeth into what we do. And now that we've done that, we can kind of hop over it and do this again. Maybe, we've got a series of whiskeys coming out in June, and we'll set some stuff aside and maybe get you some bottles of that. And then we can come back on maybe early July or something.
That sounds amazing. I'd love to have that. So
real crazy shit like the honey smoke rye will be coming out then, and our single malt with the Amaro cask will be coming out, and a lot of crazy shit coming out.
Well, I hope you follow us on social media. We'll follow you. And like I said, Aaron's done a great job. Appreciate him getting us in touch with you, and hope you enjoy the rest of your night, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, thanks again for the time, for getting us on the show. And
I hope it was worth your time.
Thank Aaron. And it was always worth it. Always worth it to meet you guys. And hopefully I catch you guys in person someday soon too.
100%, man.
All right, guys. Have a great evening.
Wednesday, brother.
Yeah. Cheers. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
What was that, Greg? Yeah.
They can't hear. I mean,
it's a rye.
You're having a conversation with someone on the mic. No.
I didn't know. I thought you were like talking to a person. I didn't know you were like on the.
We're still live on the feed here.
But so that's a whiskey, and those are bourbons.
So it's a rye whiskey that we were focusing on tonight, and then we have some different bourbons.
Yeah, you can tell they're a little darker.
Yeah.
Just because they're in a small bottle.
So it is a bit darker, actually, especially the cast strength. It has a darker color to it, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's interesting. I absolutely love what they're doing.
Yeah.
Super cool. The rye is my favorite, though.
As old as it is. And
pick up the mic. Let's might as well have them on there. Pick up the mic and we'll put you on.
Grab the mic.
And we got to get into part 2 here.
Our side.
Flip it around.
I mean, that's impressive. The 105, that is just a whiskey. And
it's a rye whiskey, so it's 95% rye and 5% malted barley, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Aged at least 2 years in Kentucky.
And just being aged 2 years is has an impressive taste. It tastes like it's aged 8 years minimum.
I agree.
I think.
That's why I was talking about earlier. Like rye whiskeys tend to age a little bit faster than a bourbon.
Gotcha.
Like you get more of that richness, a darker color and flavor.
Gotcha.
On a rye in a shorter amount of time than you do a bourbon.
Well, I think, so the mash bill on all the bourbons were 70% corn, 21% rye, 9% malted barley. it's the grains. I mean,
Yeah.
and I'm not an expert on this.
I mean, it's got to be, and that's
I'm not an expert. I
probably
just drink a lot.
Well, and
I just look at it as that it's the corn. I don't think it ages as quickly. I think
But
the
it-
rye
but it is
carries us some
sweet.
strength.
right, and I think that's where the sweetness comes from.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
So I haven't tasted the bourbons yet, but you know, I'm sure they have kind of that same, you know, pattern, the same note, maybe.
what's
No,
what's
completely
amazing?
different
Not at all.
product.
Yeah.
Completely
No.
different product. I got to be honest. Like going back to the rye, you know, I said it with Seth on is that's my favorite product that we tried.
Yes, I agree.
The
What-
California oak and the cast strength. That's where uniqueness, like
The next
California
two.
oak, it tastes almost very specifically what they were trying to do with it.
Thicker, fruitier,
Yeah.
a little sweeter, more grain.
The small batch is what you want out of the, or I'm sorry, the cast strength is what you want out of the small batch.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah. So
where you're at?
for me, the cash strength
And we got
was,
to roll into part 2 because we are going long.
Yeah. the cash strength on the nose was very
Part
grain
one was
heavy.
2
It was
hours.
oily. There was a little bit more heat on the palate, but there was no hug even on the cask strength. The small batch was very crisp, had more apple on the nose, a little bit more of that vanilla and less sweetness than the California oak.
Mhm.
But that's because that California oak,
Super light.
that that's a wine barrel and
Also
that French
88
oak.
proof.
Yeah,
It's the
and that one
lowest proof thing.
yeah, and that one tasted a little bit sweeter.
Well, that's a good description of that 105. The heat on the hug, and then it just goes away.
Yeah,
It's not
you're
like
right.
it hangs.
Well, no, I was talking that was talking about the 115, the cask strength. Like there was a little bit of heat in the palate, but there was no hug down in the chest.
Exactly, right.
You haven't
Right.
had that one yet.
No, but that one
The rye.
did the same
Yeah.
thing.
There was
It's
no
the same thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was gone. It
All right,
was
let's roll
pleasure.
into to part 2 here. And, you know, Greg, feel free. Sean's still here. You guys are still here out the audience. I'm going to ask you guys to also. Yeah, what do you want to taste?
I just want to taste a little bit of each one. I mean, it doesn't be much. Just
All right, well, bring your glass
finish,
over and
finish your
start. Yeah.
glass or get another one. Get
Yeah.
another-
Where do I get those little cups that Sean got?
I'll tell you what. You carry this for
No.
about 2 minutes. I
Steve will
got it.
show you. Steve will show you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So So for those still listening while we're still doing the intermission, so the rye, I was at 8.5. Absolutely loved that one. Then went to the California oak, which is 88% or 88 proof. Sorry, 80% is Central Coast Cabernet staves. So that's where more of that fruitier, thicker, sweeter texture and notes came from on that one, it was so drastically different from the rye. The small batch being their bourbon, again, same exact mash bill, 70% corn, 21% rye, 9% malted barley. That one was a little bit more crisp, a little sharper, had more of like an apple on the nose, a little bit more vanilla note on the palate, less sweetness than the California oak, but that's because of the barrel staves. And then the cask strength, grain heavy on the nose because that's taken the small batch and just cranking that flavor up a little bit. And because it's a higher proof, it's a little bit more oily. But again, not a hug. A little bit of heat in the palate, but not a hug.
All right. We're getting into this. We got to go. We've got 5 people listening right now. I want to get more people on this. I know it's getting late.
6 according to that because we got someone on YouTube.
Perfect. We'll figure it out. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 219, part 2. This is going to be Beyond the BS. You know, this is one of those times, you know, Nate, that I was talking about. It's tough after 200 plus episodes to come up with a life topic every time. So I put it out on the community page, but it was very last minute. You know, what do you guys want to talk about tonight? And then I actually just turned that into a topic that actually I think is fairly relevant with what we're dealing with now and always, is the topic tonight is, what should we talk about?
Okay.
Not just tonight, and you guys can comment if you're listening, and I'd love to field some questions as well. But I said it, when we were talking with Seth from Broken Barrel. He asked what it was, because it was getting late. We went almost 2 hours with part one because we had a great guy on, and it was a great guest. It's very good. But I put it in the description. These days, it is apparent that people have a lot to say, and some people won't hesitate to tell you what they think or believe. What is the difference between a conversation and a monologue, and how can we work on being better about communication with all the avenues that are available? I'm going to start with, first of all, thanking you guys out there, the sponsors, Tinderbox at Easton, Alternates USA, BS Cigar Company, and also all of you supporters out there on the Patreon page, patreon.com/bourbonandbs podcast. And then also at Venmo, for those that have bought us a bottle. We've had a few people do that, at Bourbon and BS on Venmo. If you want to send us some money and tell us what you want us to buy, Nate and I will do our best to try to accomplish that. Hopefully we don't have to travel too far if it's not available in Ohio, but we definitely want to, appease that, and we appreciate that. If you like the shirts, the podcast shirt, that was a charity one. It's no longer available. Pour one more, light up another. We'll figure this out together. And I finally worked with them, and we're going to be sending in the donations to both the pink and the green charities.
There are still 4 other colors of this shirt available.
That's right. That's right. I'm wearing the BS Cigar Company, the 3/4 sleeves. This has been a big hit. We added this color. We have the black, white, and gold.
Mm-hmm.
We also have the black and red and black and blue that are now available, that have been, these have been a great hit, and we appreciate that support on there. So there's also hoodies available. Probably don't need that going into the summer, but we definitely have some shirts for you available. So check that out.
It's not a bad option though in the summertime, because it's a 3/4. It's not a long sleeve. It's not a heavy, thick shirt.
Nice night like tonight, honestly.
Wow.
But
I got the long sleeves underneath because I get a little bit more cold than you do.
I run a little hot. Mostly it's the drinking and caffeine combination. I worked out. I did put about 2 sets in at the gym this evening, and it was a full gym. And I was looking around, and I'm like, these people must think that I'm either out of shape or I don't know, cocaine, something. I was sweating like crazy, and being bald, you can't hide it. It's not up in the hair. It's just like pouring down, and I'm looking around at the people around me, and it's just like, I felt like I was getting looks.
Your head was glistening.
Soaked, absolutely soaked, and I'm okay with that. I felt like I was burning some calories. Yeah, well. Anyways, all right. So I want to start with the topic tonight being, what should we talk about? Nate, do you have a take on this? I have a take on this. Clearly, I came up with this, but.
Well, the way you introduced it, having a platform, talking about something like, I think one of the things that gets lost with social media platforms, even though it's available, I don't think everyone takes advantage of it, is the ability to actually have dialogue, to have a conversation,
right.
To not, I think too many people post a thought. And
on
then
social media,
and then there's nothing else after that. Like some people will, a lot of people will like or love or hate whatever, the emoji reactions are to a post, but then that's it. It never goes the next step.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that's missing a lot with some of the social media interaction is just the back and forth dialogue. And that's one of the things that's great about, in-person communication. I had an interview yesterday, and the person was asking me about, would you rather work remote? Would you rather work in the office? And I told him, it's like, there's merits to both, but one of the things I miss about being in the office is the ability to just go up to another person and have a conversation with them, because you can get a lot more accomplished. And then also, if you're just talking through text on a screen, there's certain inflections that people will miss or they will misinterpret.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been a victim of that, where I have said something to coworkers and they put their own inflection on it, and it completely changes the meaning of what I said. So I was saying, I may have been saying something that was meant to be comical and funny, and the other person just took it serious and thought I was yelling at them or criticizing them.
Were you yelling at them?
No, I wasn't.
All right.
I was literally being a smart ass, which is me, but they thought I was
dry.
They thought I was trying to be a dick.
Pretty dry. You're pretty dry. I think that's where the dick part comes in.
It comes across better in person. That's my point. But at the same time,
I can vouch for that.
Thank you. At the same time, if that person would have asked me a question like, "Hey, how did you mean this?" or "What did you mean when you said this?" I could have better explained. Well, here's what I meant. Because like Greg was talking about, it's also the facial cues, facial expressions that people give. Like, if I say something and I've got a smile on my face, I'm not trying to be an asshole. Like, I'm saying something because it's either funny or, I think it's a comical topic to talk about. I'm not trying to be an ass. But I think other people will interpret things that you say based on their own emotions and how they're feeling at that time.
I think they can, yeah.
And I think that's one of the ways you can misinterpret how things come across.
Well, I think, talking in person, I agree that there are some, the visual cues, as far as that goes, with mannerisms and everything else. You have to know your audience. I think it's a big part of it, is that you need to know your audience. And when you brought up social media, I think that is a big thing, is that your audience is vast, and people that follow you, or the people that you follow, when you make a comment, you're not always in the majority, or you have that echo chamber type of a mentality, which is also a little dodgy, if you will. You know what I mean? It's a little tough. But, saying things without repercussion is also a part of it, right? You say that stuff and someone didn't get your humor, they didn't get it, all that stuff. Yes, they should respond with like, "Hey, what do you mean by that?" "Oh, I was kidding. I didn't get the joke. That's offensive. Say it again one more time, because I'm sorry I missed it." That's the difference between a conversation and a monologue. I feel like is that there are times where, especially with some hot topics, is that you can say something, you can bust balls, you can do all that stuff, but even saying something like bust balls is a problem.
So there was a program that we all had to go through at the company I work with, and one of the aspects of it was assume positive intent.
Mm-hmm.
So when someone says something, instead of going off your initial reaction, try and take it like, assume that person is actually meaning something positive. But I flat out I've called out multiple people before. It's like, you're like, we as a culture in the company are supposed to assume positive intent. And yet, as soon as I said this, you immediately went negative and thought I was criticizing someone.
You shouldn't assume anything, in my opinion.
Bobby
Harrison says, "I hate ball busters." Yeah, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, Bobby's one of the biggest ball busters out there.
Yeah, I put up on the screen though. To your point though, I want to comment this while I have it on the screen so I can take it off there.
Yeah, Tim.
Tim Dodge says, "There's nothing better than having a face-to-face conversation, business or personal. My wife returned to her office today after a 2-year, 2-month hiatus, obviously because of COVID, I assume, and she loved her day." This is some of the best stuff that we can do.
Yeah,
is have this conversation, even over like a live podcast like we do. Is like you putting someone's comments up there, seeing our faces, as opposed to just doing a podcast that we post later and we try to promote and you guys listen to what we said a week ago. Having that personal interaction, I think, is something that is so taken for granted.
Yeah.
We didn't even realize that before the technology took a hold of all this stuff, that you could be the keyboard warrior. You can do all that stuff. It used to be the armchair quarterback where you just sat in the room and you pissed off your family because you're like, they should have done that. You're like, well, you're not playing the fucking game. Same thing with the keyboard warrior. You can say all that shit, but it's like, What'd you actually do today?
You should have thrown
You
the ball.
fucking sat there and watched, your Twitter feed, and you watched the nightly news, and you just got pissed.
Yeah.
Get the fuck off your ass. Go do something. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, get out.
Yeah.
Talk to people.
Yeah. I mean, we always used to make fun of the armchair quarterbacks because it's like, well, you're not the one that's actually out there. You're like, oh, you should have thrown the ball down that guy. Well, yeah, you be the quarterback behind a line that's all 6'3" to 6'6" and see if you can see that.
It's not as entertaining, but the best thing for those people is to put that quarterback cam on.
They have that in that USFL.
What are you gonna say?
They have that in that USFL where like the running backs wear
a
a helmet cam or
should have gone left. Well, you didn't see that guy.
Yeah, exactly. You didn't see that 240-pound linebacker that was crashing that hole.
Beat your ass. Ray, I'm not talking to you. I'm not talking to you.
No, he was
talking with you.
Yeah, exactly.
No, what should we talk about? This is something, in the cigar shop, you see this a lot. So there was a time, I was in part of like a lot of like chambers of commerce, like lead groups in my previous career. And I got to be honest, I hated it. I've mentioned this before on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I'd go into these forced small talks, right? Greg, you're in the garage right now, and you're a general contractor, handyman, very skilled person.
You're welcome.
Not that skilled. All right, calm down. You're okay at what you do. You've worked on things in my house. It's fine. It's fine. But my point is that you put yourself in a place that you have to plug yourself and talk highly about yourself. A lot of people are uncomfortable with that.
Talking about themselves?
No. Talking about themselves, but in a way that they can help other people.
Ooh.
There's this critical thinking style, right? Where it's like, like you do this, I can do this. Like, this makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, I got to make money. You got to make money. You go in these lead groups, you go in this, like, those groups of people, like you can talk about yourself, but can you talk about yourself and what you can do or what you think as being relevant? That I think that's the big part of it, is that you go into these groups and it's like, I work in the cigar industry. I do a podcast. You're like, cool. I sell homes. All right, you sell homes. Like, you must be doing really well. We have a conversation. Do we benefit from each other? Probably not, unless you just have an open conversation. Tell me about that. I don't want to take up your time. You sell homes, you're a realtor. I hope there's probably a dozen other people in this room that you should probably talk to. But I tell you what, like, let's have a drink. Let's do this. You got to talk in the mic. But you're right. Greg says,
it depends on the questions.
Hang on.
It depends on the questions you ask, and it depends on what they want. And it depends if they ask you a question, then you have to answer them and listen.
That's exactly right.
So you have to listen to what their problems are. Then you have to find their pain. What is their pain with their project, or what they want, or what they're trying to achieve?
Tell us part about some of those networking things, where you go into that and it's a volunteer thing, like, or your business is making you go, you're a business owner, you got to go by yourself, whatever it might be. But it truly is, if you have ever taken classes on this or courses, or you've looked into this, read books, you're not there to plug yourself. You are.
In a sense, yeah, absolutely.
You are, but you don't want to come across that way. You want to find out what they do.
Well,
exactly right. That's why
really just decipher through all that stuff. You want to, because people do like to talk about themselves. People like to talk.
You think
they do?
They do. We're doing
that's
a
why.
podcast.
That's
We're
why
talking
when you
about
go to
ourselves.
seminars, when these guys ask everybody in the audience, "What do you like? Give me. What do you do? What do you do?" And they bounce off to the guy that's giving the seminar. He's getting input from the audience, so now he's going to give input back to them, but he's giving back to what their questions are. So these people are asking him. He's not up there just talking about him 100% of the time. There you go. See you later. He's saying, "What do you want? What do I need to tell you? So they tell him, and then that's what he tells them. And it's the same thing
So
when
that's the
you're
point. If you-
selling your service product,
Yeah.
or you're selling a product on the phone, you're selling a product in life. I mean, at someone's door. You want to ask them questions, and they tell you, and they want to tell you everything, and then you answer them and tell them how you're going to help them.
Biggest part of a conversation, in my opinion, is asking questions.
You
Go
want to
ahead, Nick.
listen, ask questions, and listen.
Yep.
So when I used to do door-to-door sales,
When he brought that up, I knew you were going to go there.
well, when I did door-to-door sales, the way I approached it was the first thing I was trying to do was not try and sell them a product. I was trying to sell me. Because if that person could like me as a person, they would be more receptive to listening to what I had to say about whatever it is I was selling.
Sure.
Whether I was doing door-to-door sales in the energy industry or whether I was selling cigars, in 8 states in the Midwest. Like when I started out that job selling cigars, like I didn't want to just come out there and, be like a sales rep that had been doing this with the same company for 5-10 years or whatever. Like I took the approach where I want these people to know me and to like me, because if they like me, whether they like the product or not, if they like me, they're more willing to buy what I'm selling.
Absolutely.
Well, people buy from people they like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how do you get people to like you? You talk at them?
You have to talk with them.
Yeah, you have to it's all semantics too. When you get to that point, right? It's like you said talk with them, right? If I say I'm going to speak with you, if I say I'm going to have a conversation with you, everything is getting a little bit more relaxed.
Right.
I'd like to have a conversation with you. I'm not an authority figure, but I want to talk to you. No, don't say that. This is the art of, in my opinion, art of conversation, art of speaking. This is something that if you want to get your opinion across, you have to be prepared that it's not going, you're not going to change the mind of someone.
Right. All you got to do is ask them a question. If they answer you, okay, then now you're in. Now the door's open.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
Do you think the art of conversation has been lost on us because of social media? Because
no.
Okay.
I don't. I really don't. I think that the art of learning has been subdued by it. I feel as though you go through, again, not to get into specifics, but it's something that when there's the next cause out there, and you just want to you post everything about this next cause, and then a week later you're posting about the next cause. It's like you lose validation when you talk at people. I'm of the opinion that you want to talk and have conversations. You want to learn about it. You don't walk into most situations. Let me rephrase this. I'm gonna scale back here a second. You want to walk into most conversations, most situations with your basis, but you also want to be a bit open to learn from them, because it's that age-old thing. If you stop learning, if you close yourself off to new facts, to new opinions, you've already learned it. You've already capped yourself out, and that is it's very. It's disheartening. It's short-minded.
I was gonna say short-sighted. Yeah,
short-sighted. I think that it's also, that's when it turns angry. That's when emotions come involved, because you're no longer having a conversation with someone. You're not having this open dialogue that I have my convictions in what I want to talk about or how I look at what we're talking about. But at the same time, I don't want to hear what you have to say. Then this is not worth it for anyone, because now all it's going to happen is that if you had a relationship with that person before that, you're fucked. If you went into that with no relationship, but you're trying to prove your point, you're fucked. There's no, basically, if you shut yourself off to any discussion, and you could have 10 discussions, 100 discussions, and nothing changes your mind, that's one thing. But if you keep that slight open-mindedness, what should we talk about type of a thing.
Say that again.
You're talking about online or text or?
Oh, I've had it online. I've had it in person.
So are you?
More in person because I don't have those conversations online. Honestly.
Well, let me ask you a question. Have you sold more cigars to people in person than you have online?
Yeah.
Of course, because
Also, working in
there's
brick
more
and mortar, though.
variables.
I'm not an online
They
shop.
see you. They see the atmosphere around you. They see how you're reacting. They see you in person. So, of course, they'll get to like you better as seeing you in person.
Well, I think one of the other things is when you put something online, whether you have an open-mindedness or not, if you put a post or an opinion online, you can choose whether or not you engage with a comment or not.
You could just shut up.
Yeah,
Let me-
like you don't have to pay attention to what they say. You don't have to acknowledge it. You don't have to have a dialogue back and forth. And I think that's one of the things that we've seen more prevalent over the last couple of years with people with shutdowns, with people working from home. It's been more online and not face to face. But that's one of the things I love about the cigar shop and cigar shop community is people can have a conversation.
Right.
And if someone says something they disagree with, because they are face to face, it forces an interaction. It
There's
forces a back and forth.
The variables. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
It forces people to actually have a conversation and clarify what people are thinking. But then also it forces that other person to hear and acknowledge that there are other opinions that they may not agree with.
And they can see how they feel.
They can see how it affects other people.
Absolutely.
Well, you can't dodge it, right? I mean, there's that awkwardness there. And,
Right,
you know, Charlie
right.
Creekmore says, read the room, read the room, read the room. I love what Ray
Right.
says. Everyone's position is opposition these days. I see what you're saying, Ray. I don't necessarily always agree with you. I mean, like you're absolutely right. People are, and this is not making fun of the whole trigger thing, but people walk in with a hair trigger. I mean,
Mhm.
they have their mentality. I think the last few years have really enhanced that. I think that there's something that you had your opinion, but you didn't have to see people, so you were in your hole, and you just kept getting it after it. And when you got introduced to people again, the interaction, the face-to-face interaction was not really the same as it was before. It really wasn't. Also, side comments. Listen, Tim Dodge says, I thought Steve was taller until saw him in person. I'm a solid 5'10". With the hair 5'10". That's as clean cut as when you lean back to a.
He's not saying it
You're-
face, though, is he?
You know what? He came in. You know, Tim is a supporter of the podcast. He came into the shop and he bought a bunch of BS and now he's giving a bunch of BS. So, you know, we get that. Tex cojones. I like that. I like 5'8" all day. Go fuck yourself. I grew to 5'10" by myself. I shave my head every day. So,
We're not all as big as you are, Tim.
yeah, Tim's a bit. Yeah. Well, anyways, no, I look at this and we had this thing. We talked about it recently, and thanks, Charlie. You know, I had some people over my house a couple Sundays ago. Great day. It was a mix of people.
Yes,
And
it
I
was.
you know, this is where I'm going to go with this. What should we talk about? I would have loved to invite all the circles that I'm involved with. And I feel very, very blessed to be involved with many circles. Some people are closer, some people are not, you know what I mean? Like, or it's just friends of friends, and being in the retail side of it, in personal interactions, there are people that come in the shop, and I mean, no offense to this. There are people that come into the shop that know my name that I don't know their name.
Yeah.
A lot of the times I squash it and I'm like, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. There are other times where I'm just like, good to see you, brother.
Mhm.
It's not about being popular. It's just the fact that it's like when it comes to my personal life, there are so many social circles that I am blessed to be a part of that I want to talk to these people. And I make it clear after the fact because I'm also involved in social media. It's not at this point, it's not a like thousands and thousands of people. It's hundreds of people that then I get people saying like, "Oh, look like you have a good time." I already feel guilty about the fact that I didn't have you over there. A couple Sundays ago, I had some work people. I had some friends. I had my girlfriend's friends over. I had some neighbors over. I
Mhm.
had all these people, just these circles combining. And I remember looking around while people were there. I'm like, oh man, I wish this circle was there. I miss this. I don't have a big enough house. So if someone wants to fund that, I can get a bigger, like I can get a pool and all that stuff. But to be a friend, it's not about that you need to pay me, but I'm sorry, I'm not there. I love having those people over. I loved having the conversation with the people that are there. At the end of the night, it wasn't about the alcohol. It wasn't about the drinking. It was about who was left at the house. And we were having that around the fire conversation.
Literally. Do you think
Go ahead.
when people were over at your house, because I was one of those people that were there.
Yeah, you had to work, but you were late. But
Thank you. Someone's got to sell cigars on a Sunday.
Sure.
But did you notice? So like you said, there were multiple circles of friends. Did you notice them hanging out with their own circle on your back patio? Like your circle of cigar friends were together. Your neighbors were together or mixed in with you, or there was
great.
Your girl's friend, your ladies' friends were all hanging together.
No, so it's interesting. What I saw is that you bring people together, and with the topic, what should we talk about? I saw, yes, there were, for in my mind, cliques. This group is hanging out here. This group's hanging out here. This group's hanging here. One thing I really love is that they all came to be together. Then I saw certain people. Spencer, who's been a part of the podcast a lot, right? Big supporter. He's been on the show. He's going to come back on the show. He's a good friend of mine. It has an art of conversation and a genuine interest in people.
Yes, he does.
It's so interesting because you think, Spencer, you're going to hear this later. Some people could take that as like it's artificial. It's just
he's just a genuinely curious
then when he brings it up later, I was talking to this person. I really had this great conversation with. It's interesting. He was the social butterfly. He was talking to other groups. He was bringing up this person and this person and that person. There's an effort there. And he is a genuine, if you guys listen to the podcast before, he's a genuine question asker.
Yes, he is. And he does that when he's on the podcast.
He wants to know. It's an art form. He's a salesperson. So you think it's fake maybe at first, but it truly is this. He retains it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the big part of it. It's not just asking questions. It is listening. Greg, you said that before. It's listening to that conversation. And you can stay in your group. There's no right answer. You can go to these social settings. You can stay in your own apartment, house, whatever it might be. You can live at your level of comfort.
But all those groups
you don't have the mic.
No one can hear you, Greg.
There's rules in the garage.
All those groups were there because of you.
Right.
So so I mean
that's the basis.
That's the whole panache of all the group thing. They're all there because of you, and they're all there because they're your friends. So you're all a group, even though they're kind of in the group, but they're there for a common goal, is hanging out with Steve.
What's interesting though is that in that that context, right? I was grilling. I talked to less people than anyone else at that party.
Because they're all getting along. Because they're all like-minded.
There's this common bond with people that it's like, what should we talk about? You actually talk, you ask questions. That's that great equalizer. As I feel like as if you try to relate. It's not. There's no there's no benefit to like there's no goal. There's no goal.
Just hanging out, being comfortable.
You just talk to people. You
Right.
just enjoy the fact that you're in the presence of someone else. And yes, to your point, Greg, and I'm not trying to say that, but it's like to you guys out there, that was the question. I brought it up last week, and the same thing. It's like when we were talking about this stuff, it's like, what have you done recently?
Yeah.
And I literally brought up the fact, I was like, I don't know, I do a podcast every week, and I invite friends and neighbors over to my house.
Yeah. Yeah, because someone had brought up
that's a lot, because I brought people together.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for credit.
well, because
I was free this Sunday, and
Right.
I wanted to have people over, and I want to sit by my fire. I can do it by myself. I
You
can say
sit on my
fuck off.
patio,
I can
that's
say
what I've done.
everyone, just everyone. I don't want you over my house.
Yeah, I got you over at my house today to ask me what have you done this week? So there you
It
go.
was just, but I
Right,
think that's
right.
a frame of mind where it's you can
Mhm.
actually do all that stuff, and what we do with our time is start with the people that are important to you.
Right.
Yeah.
And you
Let
don't know
them figure it out.
and
how many friendships you've caused. You don't know how many professional relationships
BS
you've
community
caused just
page
from
is up
some
to
meetings.
1,500
Yeah, I mean,
members.
you never know.
So I'm,
well, I mean, how many times like on the community page is like someone reached out asking a question, and someone else that person has never met before is like, oh no, like here's what you need to do, here's an answer to that question, or
Well,
like,
yeah, hey,
like, hey, I need, I have an issue with this part of my house. Do you know anyone? It's like, actually, we do. We know a guy.
and they
Here,
probably know the same people, and those people know the same people, and everyone's kind of connected, and they know the same people, and next thing you know, they're all connected somehow.
It creates
I mean, and
a
that's
community.
how it's all networked.
It does
Yeah,
create a
absolutely.
community, and
Absolutely.
someone there that Sunday night had
Absolutely.
asked Steve a question, and Steve started talking about this sense of community, and then that person followed up, like Steve said, like, what are you doing about it? And Steve's like, I do a podcast where literally anyone who wants to participate can watch us online and ask us a question. They can engage with us, with other people that are watching. And, and we've seen that with some of our own community members, like Sean Anderson, Ray Cheshire. Like, those are two people.
Sean Wilkinson, Shannon Chapman.
Well, like
They're here every week.
Sean, yes, they are. Sean Anderson and Ray are two people that never would have met through any other circumstance.
There you
Bobby
go.
Hirschman, Tim Dodge,
Yeah.
Charlie Creekmore,
Yep.
all these people.
Yep. Look how many people you've brought together.
That's what should we talk about? Whatever the fuck you want. I gotta be honest. I mean, that's it. I'm trying to read these comments here, and Ray, you said sounds a little corporate America to me when Charlie said about the icebreakers. There is a bit of that. I think that just like anything else in life, with this, what should we talk about is you got to work on it.
Mhm.
Because if you just shoot from the hip, you're not going to. You're not gonna have a lot of friends. I gotta tell you that, unless I think just like you.
Well, I mean, some people have their comfort zones where, like, they're really good at having conversations or meeting new people, so long as it is with something they're comfortable with.
Yeah, that's how cults start.
Well, no, I'm not talking about a cult. Like,
Thanks, Sean.
so for example, when you were having people over,
You want to sip?
when you were having people over on Sunday, you made a point to let my wife know that she was allowed to come over to your house before I got off work.
She was welcome.
Yes.
This is how we say things.
Yeah, she was welcome to come over.
She's allowed. And now we got more comments coming in. What do
my wife's
hear
biggest
from the viewers?
My wife's biggest concern is she doesn't do that well in social groups and social interactions.
Bro, same way.
If she doesn't already have some sort of common bond. She could be out at the barn and meet people for the first time, but because they already have that common interest of horses, they can become friends very quickly.
Yeah, I get it.
And you know, there have been times where we've been together and we've met people for the first time, and all of a sudden, you know, I start having a conversation with that person, and the next thing you know, we're talking like we've known each other for years. And she, after we leave, she's like, how do you do that? And I'm like, I don't have a method. Like,
two sides of it, right? So you
I
have
just
the natural side. You just talk to people.
Yes.
I'm going to comment on what Tim Dodge is saying. Cheshire was commenting on is that was the sweaty palms going into these social networking groups, you know, chambers of commerce, the lead groups. When I was in the moving and storage industry, I'm like, you give me a fucking icebreaker, and I'm like trying to think of an icebreaker. Sean, can you look at an icebreaker for me? Yeah. Just Google icebreaker. Get off of Angry Birds for a second.
I used to use
just an icebreaker. When you have a group, let's call it, right. So right now we have about 10 people listening, right, between all of us, right. So you got a dozen people sitting in a room, never met each other, and you do an icebreaker.
What are you gonna do when you're tired?
Where are you from?
So Sean says, "What do you do when you're tired?"
No, what are you gonna do when you're retired?
What are you gonna do when you retire? These are both good icebreakers, honestly. What are you going to do when you're retired? If I'm sitting around a group of people and someone's like, all right, hey, everyone, we're going to start with an icebreaker. What are you going to do when you retire? My brain does not work like that.
Yeah.
There's the person ahead of me, right?
Let them go first.
You know, I'm going to travel. I'm going to like see the world. I'm gonna probably just rent an RV. I'm gonna just buy an RV. I'm just gonna try just drive all over. I don't know.
You sound like a dating app right now.
Oh, that's the problem with icebreakers because that's where I'm at. What are you gonna do when you retire? I don't fucking know. I don't know when I get there. I'm gonna work my ass off. I'm gonna try to do the best I can. I would love to retire when I'm 65. When are we supposed to retire? 62? 67? Shit. I don't know what I'm going to do. You're stressing me out, man. I would more rather have a conversation. It's like, what'd you do yesterday?
So
what'd you do today? It's what time is it? It's 10:30. What'd you do today with your life? I love that conversation. When I had a conversation. Sorry, I keep cutting you off. I'm sorry. I talked to my mom today on the phone.
Okay.
I talked to my mom today. She is retired.
Mm-hmm. So is mine. Yay.
I said, how you doing? She's like, I'm good. I was tired today. Yeah. She's like, I was tired today. And are you coming on Sunday for Mother's Day? Yeah. Chris and I are coming. Yeah. Just checking in. And I asked, so for all the listeners out there, now or in the next few days, Mother's Day is Sunday. Get after it. But I asked my mom, I said, after we had this small talk, you know what I mean? I said, how was your day? What'd you do today? Well, went to church and we had the Bible study. We did this. And it's like, that's when you find out what people are doing. That icebreaker shit, I get the point of it. I do. But it is as quick hitting in the delivery as it is on the reception of it. Who the fuck cares? If you were a candy, what would you be?
Oh gosh. I've been asked questions like that in job interviews.
Going back, I know I've interviewed a lot of people. We've talked about that on the podcast. But, yeah. I'd be a juicy stripe. I'm quick out of the gate. God damn, I disappoint in the end. I'm just saying. What do you want to do? There was
I had one where they asked me if you were a kitchen utensil, what would you be? I'm like, are you freaking serious?
What'd you answer?
Chef's knife.
All right, why?
Because
we're gonna take a left here. So, Nate, if you were a kitchen utensil, what would you be? You said a chef's knife.
Yeah.
Why would you be a chef's knife?
because once I'm assigned a certain task, I'm very freaking good at that task.
I hate my job as an interviewer
I know.
already.
Well, when I used to do door-to-door sales, what I would use
I would be a refrigerator.
because you're just cold and heartless all the time. No,
I
I'm
take
kidding.
care of everything that's important.
I had one coworker.
That's how you spin it.
I had one coworker. His answer was spatula.
He's flat.
Well, no, because he's actually dynamic and he can do more than one thing. That was the way he described it.
Tim Josh said, I'm a mixer. I always stirring shit up.
when
There's a purpose if it's entertainment, but if you're trying to get value out of some of these icebreakers,
when I did door to door, like I would look for stuff in people's yards or in their or on the outside of their house. Like if they had yard signs, like I would try and use that as an icebreaker. So when I was knocking doors, that's when there was a lot of controversy about the director of the Ohio State marching band, and there were people that would have yard signs in their yards that I stand with Waters, and that was the last name of the former OSU band director. And so I would see that and like, oh, were you in the marching band? Because my wife was in the marching band from this year to this year, and that's how I'd break that. When I was knocking doors in the development that I grew up in, I was asking people, hey, did you actually go to school here? Because I did. I graduated this year. Or if they sat there and said, oh, I graduated in this, I'm like, oh, so you may have known this relative of mine who graduated a year or two off of you. And that's how I was using that to find that common ground.
Yes.
And then build off from there.
But while I'm here, let me ask you a question. Right.
Is he on?
Yep.
Yes, he is.
Yep.
All right.
Oh, I am. Okay.
Make sure your mic's on.
Your mic's hot.
Or like if you're getting in someone's house and you're in their house and you're getting ready to, the icebreaker is like they have a deer head on the wall or they have a painting.
Full disclosure, before you
you
continue, Greg, hey, Aunt, you're a contractor. You get hired to be in these people's houses. The way you introduce that, you're just in someone's house. You were asked to be in this house.
He's not a cat burglar.
and you're in someone's house, and they're just like, "Why are you here?" I'm like,
"Well, they know why I'm here because they called me to come in."
That's what I'm saying. All right.
But when I come in the house, I either know the neighborhood, or I know the neighbor, or I know why I was recommended there, or I see a deer head on the wall, or I see a painting on the wall that I recognize, or something,
or a collection of
and
bourbon.
I'll say, "Oh, hey, are you right? Hey, how do you like that bourbon? I mean, gosh, I've had that before, and I had that here, or, where did you shoot that deer at?" And then you kind of
it kind of helps make the defenses come down.
Right. Or if you're in a neighborhood that you were there before and you knew the neighbors and you grew up there, or you were in an area that you were familiar with, you could relate to something, just like exactly what you just said, Nate. And then they relate to you, and then they're like, "Oh, okay, so so and so and so and so," and you get all that conversation, and that can go on for a little while, and then okay, now they're comfortable with you, and then you start talking about what you're there for.
There's an immediate level of trust.
Absolutely, because you have common ground, and it's a network from an old network that they didn't know that you were a part of.
Cigars and whiskey.
So next thing you know, you're talking about what the project is, or what you're there to sell, or whatever you're doing, and it becomes easier. You're not just some guy banging on the door with a tie on, and okay, why do I want to buy from you, or why do I know you? Now they know you. Now you're relatable, and they're comfortable, and next thing you know,
and then when they need another project, they know who to go to.
Right, or whatever. But I mean, it's not necessarily that. But you're making acquaintances. You're making friends. You have a common ground somewhere. That's what it's all
I think
about.
It's always the point, right? What should we talk about? Like you have this interaction with some other individual. That's the big part. It's not just being in person with them. That is the greatest part of it. If you're having a private messaging type of thing, and I'm not talking about slipping into DMs here, I'm saying that you actually have a conversation with that person, that you want to have a conversation with them, that there's the benefit there, right? And I think there's no shame in the fact that you want people to like you.
100%. I mean, you're not going
I
to
think
everybody
that-
like you, but
No, but
if you can relate,
the opposite side of it is there's a lot of incidents out there right now where you are stoking the fire that you hope people don't like what you have to say. And I can agree with the shock value. I've benefited from the shock value. You have to learn from that. You can't just go with shock value and just be like, no, that's it.
Yeah, just shocking all the time.
That's it. Shock value. You don't agree with me? Fuck you. Yeah. No, it doesn't work that way. You know, I had so I was a social major, right? You know, growing up, and what was interesting, and I don't know, he's probably not teaching anymore, but you know, one of those things is that I had a sociology professor who was the head of the department. That when I switched to that major in college, there's one time where I forget, I had 4 straight semesters with this teacher. I don't even know what course it was, right? And I didn't like him at first. I was like, this fucking asshole, they, you know, whatever. But he went on this rant about, like, we were talking about economics, and he brought in the sociology side of it, but he just ran it off, this whole thing, and it's like going against everything that we were studying in this course. And he's like, see, he just stops, because he was that kind of person. He just stops. He's like, see, I could be teaching over at this other, we're 20 years old, I could be teaching over at the other building, farmer school of business, whatever it is. But man, that's exhausting. And he's like, then Christmas comes around. Full disclosure, raised in the church. But he says, those church bells at Miami University start ringing out Christmas carols at a liberal arts school. And this was 20 years ago. And he's just like, the irony is not lost on me. He's
right
like,
there with you.
He's like, I could go up to the bell tower. And it's going to offend a lot of people. I'm sorry if it does. I'm not really sorry. But he's like, because I was offended at the time. I'm like, yeah, you fucking got a point. He's like, I can go up to that bell tower. It's doing Christmas carols at a liberal arts school in Ohio. And I can say, I could kick off a toy baby Jesus off of that bell tower and be like, this is bullshit. And people would be, he said this, people would be pissed. And by Saturday, they'd be at Christmas service. It's just, it's this whole topic of what should we talk about. It's like, just have conversations. Don't oversell it. Don't try to have the shock value. Just listen to people. Have a conversation with someone. You're not on the mic, Greg. God damn it. Shock value is pick up the mic if you want to say something. I'm not going to train you again.
This is not your
shock,
first time
shock
here.
value does equate, and I know this is probably going to be like not cool, but
We'll edit you out. It's fine.
But this weekend I went to talk to a customer, went to their house. It was an old couple. They'd been there forever in this house. And they'd owned several houses in town, but they wanted to restore this old house. And the old guy goes, hey, you look real familiar. Do I know you from somewhere? And he was in a town next to where I grew up.
Yeah.
Close here.
Yeah.
And he goes, you look really familiar.
Uh-oh.
A real energetic couple. They were just, and I knew I could get away with this. And I said, do you watch a lot of porn?
Oh, God damn
And
it.
he
Do you have
cracked-
OnlyFans?
I've done that.
He cracked up. His wife cracked up. She took me a tour through the whole house. He's sitting on the front porch with his buddies.
He pulls up his porn site.
I've done that in the cigar shop.
I'm
Break
in
the hammer.
I'm in this house for 2.5 hours, and next thing
He
you
shot
know,
like 3 porns.
him and his friends it's on a Sunday, and him and his friends are all on the front porch, and they're like, "Wow, we were wondering if you were going to come out of there. We didn't know what was going on." And he goes, "Hey, I just got to tell you, 2 streets over, John Holmes grew up over there.
No.
I'm telling you." And I go, "You waited all this time to tell me that?" And I go, "Okay, now you win. You win." Boom. I was in. Obviously, I got the job. But
Sorry,
the guy
which
waited
job?
that whole time.
What was the job?
The contractor job or the porn job?
Contractor job.
Laying, you were laying pipe.
I'm actually restoring one of their upstairs rooms. It's in a museum in Tassville. But
Jesus Christ.
I'm just like,
This is why you don't drink whiskey and do a podcast.
Sometimes
This is also why you drink whiskey and do a podcast. There's 2
Sometimes-
sides to this.
that's the icebreakers.
You're open, right? So
But you
that
have
is,
to you
bro,
have to figure out where you're going to do that to.
you have tact. You read the audience, like we've talked about, and some of the viewers have said that. You read the audience, and at some point, if you don't care and you already lost it, you feel like everything's fleeting. Who the fuck cares?
I'm not saying professional, but everyone's living the same life and
just
has grown
don't
up
walk
the same
into
way
it.
you have, and yeah.
You know, I look at this as, people are we've had this conversation on the podcast before where it's like everything is sales, right? I'm not saying that you walk into every conversation that you want people to like you, but you walk into every conversation, you walk into every relationship, that why would you not want to be liked in that conversation, in that relationship?
Yeah, you just
and then when you find out that you don't like that person, okay, throw it out the window. You know what I mean? Now be honest, but be honest going into it to a point that you're just like, I'm gonna feel the waters, right? Like when you're like, I'm here for a reason. I'm trying to make money for my business. I'm trying to have a conversation with someone that I actually have interest in, as a friend, as a colleague, or whatever. If you don't see eye to eye with that person, that's okay.
But
now you cater it differently. You cater it to a point that they're like, I still want to have this relationship,
right?
Not the relationship I wanted.
I've seen that with Brian, the owner at the Tinderbox. So here's a gentleman who has been working in tobacco fields and in the tobacco industry ever since he was like 7 or 8 years old. When he was picking tobacco in a relative's farm or whatever. And there'd be a customer that comes in and, all they are is a cigar smoker. And they think just because they're a cigar smoker for however many years that they automatically know more than everyone else. And so this person keeps saying a lot of things that are just the rest of us that work in the industry and work at the shop. We're all like, well, that's wrong. That's wrong. That's bullshit. Yeah, you're making that up. But you don't know how to pronounce that.
Right.
But Brian would sit there and he would intentionally not correct that person. Even though Brian knows more than that person's acting like they're, the most knowledgeable person there. Brian's not going to get in a confrontation with them, because if he sits there and gets in confrontation with them, that person may not buy, or they may buy once and never come back. If he just lets it go and that person buys, that person might come back.
But it's not about, right, exactly what you say. It's not about because they don't know. So maybe they need to come in more often and get educated. So you just kind of let them go.
There's also a way to approach it. So, anyone who's worked in the cigar business knows that there are a lot of brands and names out there that get mispronounced. And if someone mispronounces something, you don't sit there and go, no, dumbass, this is how you say it. That's not the way to do it. It's like, well, yes, we have those right here. It's actually pronounced this. But yes, we do have that. Like, you just kind of passively throw that in there.
And that's what you're saying at the beginning of that. Yeah.
You don't sit there and talk down to that person because they're not at the same knowledge as you are.
Right.
You have to make it an inviting place, an inviting conversation. So if someone mispronounces, like, oh, well, like one of the examples, you guys have any of the Cal cigars? It's like, I know exactly what you're referring to. They're over here. It's actually CAO. And then you give them that additional knowledge. Like it's actually the initials of the founder of that company, Jono A. Osgener. He was originally from Turkey, made pipes. Like, and you give that information, and that person's like, oh, like you don't sit there and talk down and demean that person for not knowing something. You try and be educational, but in a polite manner, because then it also gives you, kind of that reputation. Like, oh, this is someone. If I have a question or I don't know something, these are people I could potentially go to.
And you're the reference for them. You are the more educational guy on the cigar, so they will come to you more and buy more cigars.
He's on.
Yep.
I know.
Absolutely.
It's very quiet.
Mm-hmm.
He's got that mic so far away.
So Bobby says, not everyone is going to like you, and I'm okay with that. Be real all the time. It is what it is. Let's round it out. I think this is something that you're absolutely right. There are people that are not going to like you, and I appreciate everyone that is wanting to have a conversation, that they want to learn from other people, and we got to be honest that people don't always, most of the time, actually, don't want to be wrong. If they feel a certain way about something, they're gonna feel a certain way about something.
Yeah.
But if you can agree to disagree, but have an honest conversation about it and actually try to learn why someone feels the way they do about something, that's where you learn. That's not where you change your opinion. And knowing that, you can lay out piece by piece everything that you feel about anything, just anything, serious, not serious. You should stretch more. You literally told me that you were feeling sore. I said, well, you should probably stretch, maybe do a roller. You know what I mean? Like, you should probably like drink more water. Something as trivial as that. There's no bias there. And a week later, you're like, how you feeling? Like, I'm pretty still sore. I still don't feel well. It's because you didn't listen. You didn't have a conversation. Your conversation was, you said what you said, and then I said what I said, and you just walked away from it. That's fine. You do that, you're still gonna be fucking sore. Anything important? What should we talk about? You walk into a conversation, you're trying to change people's minds, literally walking in the door. It wasn't even the topic that was happening, but you wanted to talk at people. Mm. You talk to them a week later, a month later, 6 months later. What do you think about this? I don't think like you. Same thing. It's literally the same thing. When someone literally offers up, like, hey, what do you think about this? And you're like, well, I think about this way. And this is why you should too. That's not how you talk to people. And I will say that to me, it's the same thing. I don't care how old you are. It's literally that simple. I got this tightness in my back, that's someone opening up to you. They're having a conversation with you. You should do this. I used to have that too, and I started stretching this way. 6 months later, like, hey, how's your back? Still sucks. Did you do that? No. It's about the communication, in my opinion.
And something like that also, like, if you're sitting there giving your opinion or advice with the sole purpose of trying to help someone,
yeah,
not trying to demean someone or talk down to someone. You're literally trying to help someone, and they don't heed that advice, and then later on they still complain about it. It also makes you not want to offer up advice again, because they've already shown that they're not going to take what you said.
Listen.
They're not going to learn from what you said. So why are you going to waste your breath saying it again or saying something else?
Well, because people like to talk.
Well, there is that. I think,
Closing remarks.
like I said earlier, when you go in, when you're going into a topic, when you're discussing something, it has to be an actual discussion. It can't just, be you sitting there talking at someone for however long a period of time and then walk away without the other person saying anything or you hearing something. That's one of the great things about this podcast. Like, neither one of us just sits there and talks to the viewers and to the camera and pays zero attention to the person sitting next to him, zero attention to the people in the garage, zero attention to the people that are commenting.
100%.
Like, we actually sit there and engage with those people. That's why we throw comments up. That's why we have a dialogue back and forth. That's why we look at one another when we're having a conversation. That's why we have a mic in the audience for the people that are not on camera and behind the screen, people that can sit there and actually ask a conversation or ask a question and put their 2 cents in. And I think one of the other things from the receiving side of dialogue, just because you disagree or just because you're offended doesn't mean you're right and they're wrong, or vice versa.
Yeah.
There's a lot of it's not even discussions at that point. You say something, someone else says something else, and you just completely dismiss that person and not have any engagement whatsoever, or you don't like what they say, so you block them on, from commenting. That completely ends any chance of a conversation. That ends any chance of learning one way or the other, because you may post something and someone else says something and they may think like they're going to try and change your opinion on that topic, but it at least gives you the door to express how you feel and why you feel a certain way. And you may actually change the way they think.
I got to ask you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No,
I thought you were done.
Go ahead.
I thought it was a mic drop.
Go ahead. Ask me.
I got to ask you and everyone else out there. I mean, going back to the conversation on my patio on Sunday night.
Mm-hmm. We talk about the end of the night?
Yeah.
Okay.
How many people have recently hosted an event in their own personal life to invite people that they are friends with, that they may or may not agree with, but you bring a hodgepodge of people together to enjoy a nice evening, have conversation, have food, all that stuff. Put the effort forward to bring people together versus what is, and this is a little bit pointed, but versus people that have spent all day, all week, all month, all year spewing their opinions to strangers. What do you think that ratio is?
Very skewed against you. Like, you're one of those, like you said at the beginning, like, you're going to bring people who believe different things, have different backgrounds, different walks of life, different way that they live, but you're going to bring them together just for the sake of getting together. And maybe there's a dialogue and conversation that is to be had there.
If you're disrespectful, do you think you're invited back?
Probably not.
Probably not. Not because you disagree, but because you're disrespectful.
Yes, there's a way to disagree. There's a way to have a discussion.
Greg texted me while we were starting this podcast. He says, "Hey, do you mind if I stop by the garage?" What do you think I said?
Yes.
Hey, he's here, clearly. But
yeah, come on by.
Yeah.
Brother. Did you call him brother?
I did.
Okay.
Said absolutely, brother.
Yeah.
This is it's an unknown anymore. The art of just being welcoming to people.
Well, the other
You don't have a mic in front of your face.
the other thing is, and this is something.
Turn them on.
What did your grandpa used to tell you, Greg?
He used to always say, "When your mouth's open, you're not learning anything."
Well, and there's also, and someone said
that's a pretty open statement, and it means a lot.
I think it was Charlie that said it earlier. You have 2 ears and one mouth for a reason. And when I was in high school and first started dating, one of the things my dad told me was, you have 2 ears, one mouth. Listen twice as much as you talk.
That's different than most dads, I think.
That's the way my dad was. But
you start dating,
also
you
with
have other body parts that you want to be mindful of, and I think that you got to be. I'm not trying to get into social things right now or political things, but I feel like you need to be mindful of other things when you're dating.
But one of the other things about having when you were talking about
glancing over that,
when you were talking about having those people over,
sex, what I was talking about.
No kidding.
All right.
When you were talking about having those people over your house, one of the other things is, and you've talked about this quite a bit over the last couple of years, if the only people you had invited over to your house were people from the cigar shop, like that's a little bit smaller of a community. Most of those people would agree on most of the topics that would have been discussed.
Yeah.
All you're doing, if you're doing something like that, is putting yourself in your own echo chamber.
Yeah.
And that's a phrase that you've used quite a bit, that echo chamber. You're just hanging out with people that think the same way as you, that talk the same way as you.
It feeds a lot of people. It really does. It makes people happy because it makes them feel accepted.
But it makes them feel accepted, but it's also not challenging it out of the way. Because one of the things, so like you can believe a certain way and not be able to defend your point of view.
Yeah.
And the only way you can defend the way you believe, the way you live, or your point of view is if you are actually challenged by someone else who thinks or believes differently.
Right.
And sometimes when you're approached with that, if you actually can articulate why you believe a certain thing the way you do, that can actually strengthen why you believe that way.
Yeah, Bobby Harrison says closing remarks going into overtime. Absolutely, it's a little less structured tonight. We had over almost 2 hours, part one.
Yeah.
So let's round it out. Official closing remarks, Nate.
I just did mine. I
That's
just
more of a
did mine.
conversation. All right.
That's literally I had written down my closing remarks and you had said it, and that's what I started talking about. So you're up, Steve.
All right. So what should we talk about? Bobby, everyone else out there listening, Nate, Greg, Sean in the garage. So some of the questions and some of the points I made about, like, obviously open up my house to people on that Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Part of my response again to the question that was asked is that, every Wednesday we I work on a podcast that not only do we open up people to an open conversation online, but also physically to my house. I think people take some of that stuff for granted. It is so welcoming and so I gotta be honest, I think that it's very exciting to see the people that come through the garage. And Nate, like you obviously every week you come part of this now, and your wife's part of it sometimes. Your wife was a part of the Sunday get together at my house, and there are countless of other people that I would love to be here on every Wednesday and every Sunday cookout that I have, and I entertain to my ability. It's consistent. It's not an echo chamber.
It's consistent with who you are.
It's work. I've said it before on the podcast. There have been times where on a Wednesday night I'm cashed out. I don't want to do this. And when I do it, I enjoy it. you came over tonight, and Kristen was over, and she brought dinner, and she wanted to see me because like we wanted to see each other in this window.
She had been out of town. Just
She'd
got
been out
back.
of town. You make a move to engage with the people that you want to engage with. So what should we talk about being a topic is someone bothers you, don't try to win. Make your opinions or your viewpoints known, and you try to impact them. But it's not always a win or lose conversation. It's not always a win or lose interaction. You don't have to build them onto your team. You don't have to recruit them for how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
If you made your opinion or your viewpoint or your values known, and you've worked on that, because you have to, they may or may not be on your side. But when you look at this point, is it the deciding factor of being close to them? If they disagree with you on this point, are you no longer friends with them?
That's why I've talked about in the past about like primary issues, secondary issues, tertiary issues. Like you and I, there are tertiary issues that you and I probably disagree with. In fact, I know we disagree with. But
name one.
No, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But there's a lot of the primary stuff that you and I probably do agree on.
Yeah.
And or at least talk about in a friendly manner. And that's why you and I have the friendship that we do. Because
correct.
We have a friendship based around something that we have in common, something that's solid, that's important to both of us on a higher level. The other stuff we can forget and just get by with. We can disagree with some of the smaller shit because there are other things that are reasons why we are friends and why we hang out.
Exactly. So that is a big part of it, is that, what should we talk about is the fact that, in this current environment we're with, is that if you think one thing about one thing, you think about everything else opposite of me. Or vice versa. If you agree with me on this, then you should agree with me on everything else. That's not how it works. I think, for my closing remarks is that what should we talk about? Everything. We should absolutely enjoy a conversation and learn not only what you believe, but why you think that way. And I think that's a big benefit there. And I don't know. I think we could talk about this all night. You know what I mean? I think this is one of those funnier things that I'm looking at some comments here, is that, walking into this podcast tonight is, putting out even something. What should we talk about? There could be people that are commenting like, "Well, you want a topic? You want to do this?" It's like, no, the topic is actually, what should we talk about and why?
Yeah.
And where do we go from there?
Yeah.
Should we be friends? Should we cut each other off?
I think
it's literally just learning from each other. It's we all know as we get older is that you've been closer to people, you've been less close to people, you've become closer again with people.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have that emotion and that you disagree with me, you're against me. That's not a productive thing of doing.
You can't just close people off because they disagree with you. There have been people over the last 6 years or so that the reason I have distanced myself from them was not because we disagreed with each other on certain topics. It was the way they approached those topics. Like everything they were saying was just, bless you.
Retro.
Everything they were saying. You all right?
No, retro.
All right. everything they were saying was just negative all the time. And
That's the
every time I would read it, it would make me want to, get into an argument with that person, because it wasn't at that point. That person was so emotional. There was no discussion to be had.
Yeah.
It was just simply yelling back and forth. And there were certain people that were just so negative all the time, shouting about things that me seeing what they were saying was having a negative impact on me.
Yeah.
Just because it was causing me to think, it was causing me to be angry. And I was like, I got to look out for me. I can't do that. Like, I'm not going to engage or talk with this person. I don't want to see what they have to say. And, if that person changes how they approach things, then fine, we can re-engage. But if all the time, all they're going to do is yell and scream, there's not a conversation to be had.
It's a conversation, right? So that's the big part of it. And we should round it out with that is the people in the garage. I respect the people in my garage. I respect people in my house. I respect people that I've invited to my home. And every week that we do this podcast, I am of the opinion and all of the feeling that, Nate, you're a part of this every week now. I'll take it a step further that I invite countless people. Who knows how many people? I want more and more people to be invited to my garage, to this conversation. I absolutely am impacted and honored to have these people tune in, show up to my garage physically, to join on a Wednesday night. And it leads me to believe that not only do people want this type of inclusion, that want to hear about this, they want to have a conversation, they want to disagree with me and you. They just, there is this human interaction that is so impactful that we just still don't talk about. You do it on the closet side of it. You listen to podcasts. We do a podcast every week. You listen when you don't even want to talk to other people about what you listen to. I love the comments on this feed. When we broadcast live, because it shows that, the biggest thing with the Twitter thing recently with Elon Musk, before and also after that, the biggest thing that I've seen was they wanted Twitter, everyone, to have an edit button. They wanted to say what they could say, but they didn't want to delete it, but they wanted to edit it. What we do here is that it's pure. We learn from the conversation. And that's what I love about doing this every week when I welcome people into my house. And Nate, you being a part of this is super impactful too. It really is that, these people that come over to my house and people that tune in to the podcast, they know me. They know the house. They know Tony, my dog. They know Kristen now. They know you, Nate. They know Sean. They know Greg. They know Shannon. They know people. They see this stuff. The synergy of the Bird and BS community page and what we do on this podcast is that there's an identity to this life that would not exist if we didn't put this effort forward. And I think when we talk about what should we talk about, you never know who it's going to affect
or impact
impact. I think that we all do this to each other, whether or not you realize it. But I want to raise a glass to the whole community, to the podcast, to you guys in the garage, Nate. People are listening. I truly truly love the fact that it feeds the week. It feeds us.
It's something to look forward to at the beginning of the week and something that keeps you going at the end of the week.
100%. Cheers, guys. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. We did a Monday one. We did a Wednesday one. We're going to do a Wednesday one. We're not doing Monday again. But I enjoy having you all on this, and I hope you enjoyed the podcast. And Seth from Broken Barrel, part 1 was great. So if you guys are listening to part 2, make sure you check back to part 1 and scroll back if you're watching the video. But you guys have been amazing, and thank you very much. Sorry we didn't get to everyone's comments, but happy Whiskey Wednesday.
Cheers.
Cheers.